you're anti-trans.
So we have this video here. So this is trans activist has triggered meltdown in heated debate. This is Rattlesnake TV. Apparently this isn't the full debate, but it's well over an hour long. I don't know that I want to watch a whole 2-3 hour whatever thing. But yeah, so like I said, I've watched this 1stamender guy before. I've never been impressed by him, if I'm honest. I don't think he's particularly good at debating, which I can't talk. I'm not very good either, but that's not really my thing. Whereas he seems to do a lot of this kind of thing on this modern day debate thing. Looks like Michael Knowles, does he? Maybe a little bit, actually. Maybe a little bit. Oh, thank you, Insane. It was £6 well spent. But yeah, so yeah, he debated. So we've got someone called Rattlesnake TV. We've got this Alex person who I think is a right winger of some kind. I've seen him debate people before. I can't remember much about him. I don't know who William is. And we've got 1stamender. It doesn't say what the premise is, but I guess we're gonna establish that in the video. Played Metroid while debating. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Looks like he has a vitamin deficiency. Nice. Anyway, yeah, let's see what's going on. So trans activist has a triggered meltdown in heated debate. Rattlesnake TV. Let's have a look.
No, that's not how this works.
Identifies as a rubber ducky, Fogel. Answer the question, Fogel.
No, I'm tired of dealing with these right-wing chuds.
I know McLovin is terrified of this argument, and I can see why, and that's why he started to try and filibuster the debate, and he's just given me the finger, which I think is actually...
See what I mean? He starts giving the finger. Look at this. It is Tuesday, isn't it? Look at this. He starts giving the finger. Actually, no, what am I thinking? He's Michael Knowles crossed with Pro Jared. That's who this guy looks like. Do I say vitamin funny? I think I say vitamin normally. No, I just saw the intro to this and I was like, I have to watch this.
No, that's not how this works.
Identifies as a rubber ducky, Fogel. Answer the question, Fogel.
No, I'm tired of dealing with these right-wing chuds.
I know McLovin is terrified of this argument, and I can see why, and that's why he started to try and filibuster the debate, and he's just given me the finger, which I think is actually probably might be considered hate speech with his logic.
I'm enacting in hate speech right now towards right-wing chuds. I hate right-wing chuds. I hate them so much. You're an intolerant bigot. You're a bad person. You wake up in the morning, you're like, I want to be a piece of garbage in the morning. I'm going to rip this dude's head off.
You could try. I don't know how well it'll go for you. Yeah,
Stop saying it's fifis. It's not fifis.
I feel like 1stamender's going to start shaking some pom-poms or something if he keeps on saying fifis so many times in a row.
I'm so sitting here showing you the empirical... Yeah, because I'm showing the empirical study and you won't change your opinion. Called gender. Well, I'm sorry.
How many fingers do
Snake, you gross...
Everybody, tonight we're debating whether or not...
Oh my god, you can see what I mean. Like, I saw that, I was like, I have to watch this. I have to watch this. So let's see.
Not misgendering somebody is hate speech, and we are starting right now with the yes side in particular. 1stamender, thanks for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Hey, how you doing, James? Glad to be back on. So yes, misgendering is in fact hate speech. Basically, what you're doing is that hate speech is not necessarily about what is intended, but rather its effect on what exactly is happening. So if you're deliberately misgendering somebody, and I don't mean like an accidental misgender, I mean like you are deliberately misgendering with the intent to be a terrible person, what you are doing is that...
And right off the bat, it'd be like, well, how do you prove intent to be a terrible person? So it's an interesting premise, I guess.
You are undermining the trans person's dignity as well as their identity. You are, in effect, reinforcing discrimination and social exclusion. On that basis, right, any human, every single human, man, woman, whatever, is that we generally, unless if there's a really good reason to, try to include people in society. And if you are already, just off the get-go, deliberately misgendering somebody in order to exclude them from society, you basically are excluding them based on just nonsense. So, to break it down,
okay, like I said, this has been edited. Undermining someone's dignity. You could make an awful lot of things hate speech on that basis. I personally do not think that misgendering is hate speech. I don't know what argument would convince me otherwise. Most not least because someone's identity is just in their head. There's no way of proving someone's identity, like gender identity. Like proving it exists outside of your head is kind of an impossibility, in my opinion.
Go ahead, William.
It's cool. I'm going to share my screen now. Hey, I'm Will. I'm going to be arguing that misgendering is, in fact, hate speech. So
Wait, has he brought a PowerPoint? He's brought a presentation with him. Holy shit.
let's get started. So before we dive into the hate speech aspect, I want to first talk about just transgenderism in general. So first, this graphic on the screen does a really good job at
maybe let me watch some of this first.
breaking down gender, sex, and how it relates to each other so that we all get a better understanding of the situation. So there's 3 categories that make up a person, and they're on the screen here, and we're going to break down each one.
We're not getting a huge amount of info. The problem is these like intros, I wish they'd give them like a minute each for like opening statements. Sometimes people get like 10 minutes each. And then, well, I mean, if it's 4 people, that's like 40 minutes already. Even when it's 2 people, there's like 20 minutes of opening statements. I don't know how long they were given, but this is quite a long thing. Gender identity, person's innocence, which I mean, if that's all it is to it, someone's innocence, again, how do you prove that? So like, how can you say, therefore, that misgendering is hate speech, you know? Outward manifestation, which is based on stereotypes, by the way. So the counter to gender expression would be, well, you're just taking stereotypical things about males or females and using that to define yourself. It's a bit annoying not really getting many of these statements, but at the same time, we've got these slides anyway, and I'd rather get into the back and forth.
So it is very easy to avoid this form of hate speech and respect each other and build each other up. The golden rule that we all.
I mean, we can look at this anyway. It doesn't matter that we didn't hear it. So intentionally using language that you know can contribute to severe psychological harm. I don't know about that, man. Like, calling someone a he when they're a male. Is it your fault that that might cause them harm? You might say any number of things that might cause people harm. Like, people have trauma around all different kinds of things. Should we start making it illegal to knowingly say something around someone that's got a specific trauma? I don't know about that. I think that's overreach. And I don't know, I'm pro free speech in general. Misgendering constantly is akin to harassment, contempt. I mean, following someone around saying something they don't want to hear is arguably harassment, sure, but it doesn't need to be hate speech to misgender someone in order for it to be harassment. Misgendering is a form of language aimed at marginalizing and invalidating an entire group. Yeah, I just don't know about this, man. I don't know about any of this. Like, maybe we'll hear some expansions on this as to why any of this matters, but I don't know. If you're hurt by someone calling you a he or a she, whose problem is it, honestly? And yeah, like the second one, yeah, you could argue that there's harassment involved, but if you're following someone around doing anything over and over again that's annoying them, that could be harassment. So, hey.
All respect. So I hope we get into bathrooms. I hope we can talk about who can use what bathrooms. I hope we can talk about who can play what sports. I hope we can talk about all the plethora of topics that are related to this. And I think that's it for my time. But I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you.
I'm going to kick it over to first time here, Jake of Rattlesnake TV. Thrilled to have you. The floor is all yours for your opening.
Thank you, James, and hello, Modern Day Debate. Good to be with you all this evening. My first time on the platform, and I really appreciate the opportunity, so thank you very much, James. And I'll be seeing you guys on the 15th, on Saturday, at DebateCon in New York, for whoever's coming, so I'm really looking forward to that. On the topic of the debate, My name's Jake. My channel is Rattlesnake TV, by the way, and I like to go by Lord Rattlesnake or Lord Jake, most base chat of all the lands. If that's too much of a tongue twister for you guys, then you can just call me Lord or me Lord. So just for my opponents today, when you do refer to me, I would really appreciate it if before you address me, you say my Lord or just Lord. Either one of them is fine. So that would be fantastic if you could respect my identity.
This is the other problem. How far are we going to take like identities? If you can identify as a gender, can you identify as a race? Can you identify as someone of a particular social class? Like we could take this in a lot of crazy, bizarre ways, when it seems like the easier way is just to kind of defer to free speech.
Furthermore, my pronouns are we, us as well. So if you could use we, us when you're talking about me, that would be great. And in terms of the debate, I do not think that misgendering is hate speech, because I don't think that speech or words in themselves can actually be hateful. There has to be intent behind it. I'm not going to say that there aren't people who don't hate transgender people. There are going to be people who hate transgender people. However, to say that misgendering alone is hate speech would imply that there is always intent there with the misgendering. I completely disagree with that notion, because normally if somebody does misgender, they're doing it because they're making a truth claim. They don't believe that they are the gender, or they don't believe that they are the sex that you're calling them. So respectfully, I appreciate that you came with a whole, like a sort of DEI thing today. That's fantastic, but I don't care about your DEI presentation. It doesn't really matter to me what your parameters for a woman are. I don't think it's relevant to the debate whatsoever. We're not going to be able to convince each other differently. That's not going to happen. The debate is about whether or not it's hate speech. So I'd appreciate it if we could stick to the debate prompt rather than getting into the weeds of what is a woman, etc. We can, if you really want to go there, we can, but it's not going to be relevant and it's not going to be productive. So if we could keep it to the prompt, that would be fantastic. And with that, I'll cede my time to Alex.
Yeah, my lord.
The guy speaking has said some weird shit about women in relationships. Yeah, he quite possibly has. I can't imagine there's anyone on here that hasn't said some weird shit about something or other, for sure.
Jake makes some good points. I actually go by Your Majesty, Your Highness will be also sufficient. So, okay, by definition, hate speech is abusive or threatening speech that expresses prejudice on the basis of ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or similar grounds. The big thing is it requires intent to cause harm. The speaker must have intended to incite hatred or hostility towards a particular group. If you, for example, believe there are two genders, like most people do, then you're just simply identifying someone correctly according to your beliefs. You're not being abusive or threatening. At least that is not your intent. It is potentially impolite. Yeah, sure, but it is not hate speech. It is also a First Amendment protected right. If you're not communicating a serious intent to commit and cause violence, then it also is protected under the First Amendment. Furthermore, I'm just going to add this. The whole premise of hate speech is a horrible idea for the left. I'm personally an old school liberal, and it's sad to see how the left basically...
Yeah, it's a bit rude to write off a presentation, but at the same time, like, who brings a PowerPoint presentation to a debate? It's kind of weird, you know?
Itself in the ass and loses every single election because of its focus on things like this. They're pretty much every normie rolls their eyes on and thinks is cringe. But yeah, the bigger point here is that simply that it requires intent to cause harm. And if you believe there are two genders, right, then you're not intending to cause harm. So for example, if you don't actually believe that Jake is a lord and you just say, hey, Jake, you're not intending to cause him harm, you just simply disagree with what he believes he is to be.
Yeah, see, this is the problem with like identity shit. It's like, how do you show an identity of any kind, really? You could say I identify as an aristocrat and wear certain clothes. Does that make you one? Does that mean that not referring to you as such should be hate speech? Why do we treat gender as if it's like special in that regard? It doesn't really make much sense to me. Oh, hi, Mikhail. I hope you're good.
But it's more polite to call him my lord, so just pointing out.
That, gentlemen, thank you very much. The floor is all yours for open dialogue.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see if I can say something real quick, right? So you wanted to be called, Alex, I believe, wanted to be called by Your Highness.
Your
and
Majesty.
Jake Rattlesnake wanted to be called by Lord, correct?
Lord, yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay, so are you aware of the massive difference that exists between respecting someone's actual gender identity and indulging in your absurd demand?
I have a feeling in saying that is not going to matter very, very quickly.
Someone's actual gender identity of the massive difference that exists between respecting someone's actual gender identity and
You think about actual gender identity. Well, anyone can just make up their gender identity. That's the problem. So how far do we go down these like rabbit holes of delusion versus just allowing people to say what they see?
indulging in your absurd demand.
Whoa, what's absurd about my demand? You have to call me my lord. And by the way, you haven't actually addressed me as my lord.
You're not being systematically discriminated for it.
Well, how do you understand that the community isn't being systematically discriminated
against? If you're a lord versus not a
against?
lord, you are not being discriminated against. However, trans people are, right?
So you're saying that based on my...
Because trans people are being discriminated against, that's the difference? I don't know about that, man. In what way are we being discriminated against anyway?
Personal subjective experience, because you said in your opening statement that it was about effect. So if we're going to talk, First Amendment.
Like, should we put different groups on different levels as to how you can speak to them? Because one of them is so-called oppressed and one isn't. Well, then how do we determine who's oppressed to how much of an extent? You know what I mean? What's the threshold of oppression before people can start claiming that certain things shouldn't be said to them? Because as far as I can tell, even like white people can make cases for like hate speech. Someone kicks your head in while calling you a cracker. That sounds like it's probably a hate crime, you know what I mean?
If we're going to talk, you have to let me talk, and then you talk, then me talk.
Yeah, I know how this like...
That's the way that it works, okay?
Yeah, you see what I mean in saying? Already it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's bad faith, who's good faith. We're getting into it right away.
Okay, cool. So let's hear from Jake. I'm going to respond. I do want to respond to what you said as well. We'll come right back to you.
You're making an unserious comparison.
I'm going to respond
to dodge the
First Amendment. I'm going to respond now. I'm going to respond.
First Amendment, I hate to do this. Gentlemen, I hate doing this, but just to, First Amendment, I do want to hear. We'll come right back to you, but I do want to hear what Jake has in response to what you had just said. Okay, ready? And then I promise, of course, First Amendment will come right back to you. I want to be fair. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, so I'm actually a little bit triggered, to be honest, by First Amender's response there, because actually in his opening statement, he said that it's about the...
Your identity is what you believe about the world and your place in it. Sure. I don't know. The problem is, how do you show that? And how do you know that anyone's claimed identity is real and actually what they believe about the world and their place in it? Or just something they made up? And why should that really be respected by anyone? You know what I mean?
Effect that it has on the person. And now he's trying to shift the goalposts and say it's about whether or not that person's oppressed or not. Actually, I feel very oppressed by you not calling me my lord, and it's deep.
Yeah, because the problem is, what if he's being genuine about this? You don't know.
Deeply upsetting for me. And based on your own logic and based on your own...
Like if Rachel Dolezal insisted that it would be hateful to call her white, how do you know she doesn't genuinely feel that way? How do you know she doesn't actually identify as black because she's been around black people for a lot of her life and identifies with the culture? You know what I mean?
Parameters that you put up in your opening statement, that would be hate speech. So you're engaging in hate speech. How dare you call it absurd that I want to be called my lord?
Yeah. So again, you're making an unserious comparison to dodge the reality that misgendering has real world...
Yeah, he's not engaging. You're not engaging with the point he's making.
Consequences.
I just told you I'm sad about
actual people who possess higher suicide rates, job discrimination, as well as medical mistreatment for misgendering. Whereas calling you Lord versus not does not systemically discriminate against you.
Misgendering someone doesn't systemically discriminate against them. You're conflating two different things here.
So I want to address the actual question, right? Rather than this ridiculous nonsense, right? The question is misgendering hate speech, right?
I really want to ask a question for Jake and Alex as well. How do you both decide what pronouns to give somebody?
But how do we decide what pronouns we use? I just look at them and I ascertain that they're a male or female. I understand that I can be tricked by somebody if they were to do a really good performance. I've been to Thailand and I've walked down the red light district, so I understand that you can be tricked. But 99.9% of the time, we're going to be able to look.
Yeah, this is the thing. How do you tell apart a Josh Saiter from someone else who makes no effort to look like a woman but still wants to be called someone anyway, wants to be called one anyway, because they actually have that supposed identity? How do you tell those two people apart? Yeah, what I was saying is misgendering isn't systemic oppression. Like someone calling someone in the street he instead of she. That's not systemic. That's like interpersonal or something. So we've had a conflation here.
Look at somebody and ascertain what sex they are.
That's called using their gender expression. You're looking at their gender expression and making a call. And as you just said,
there's a big difference between something being hate speech and you choosing out of the sake of politeness to call. So, for example, if there's a trans,
it's not always even based on gender expression. You don't see someone's gender expression. You see their gender expression plus their features plus everything about them. So they might have a certain gender expression where they're trying to look like a woman, but if their features are so masculine, they still don't look like a woman. So you can see their gender expression, but kind of see through it, or think that what you're seeing is just a man wearing certain clothes that a man wouldn't normally be wearing. And like, what's the difference? What's the difference between someone just cross-dressing and a trans person? Well, you'd say it's the identity. Well, then how do you prove that identity? So then how do you prove that someone's misgendering? You know what I mean?
Person on the panel and they seem cool and nice, then I'm just out of the sake of politeness, I will call them that, right? But even if I don't, that's not hate speech. That's my First Amendment protected right. Because if I believe there are two genders, that's my belief. I believe there are two genders. That's what.
But nobody is asking the government to create laws to force you to not misgender somebody.
Well, that's
We're
exactly
just saying,
what happened in Canada.
Well, no, you want it to be included in hate speech. Do you not then think that hate speech should be controlled or outlawed in some way?
Laws.
That's my belief. I believe there are two genders. That's what.
But nobody is asking the government to create laws to force you to not misgender somebody.
Well, that's
We're
exactly
just saying,
what
hey.
happened in Canada.
Hi, Serena. Hope you're good.
Well, okay, but we're not Canada. We're the United States of America.
Right,
but I'm arguing is misgendering.
Well, like if hate speech isn't criminalized anyway, then kind of what's the point in any of this? I don't know, man.
Hate speech. Hate speech, even if it is labeled hate speech, still has nothing to do with the First Amendment because you can still incite hate speech provided that they're not technically fighting words or like words that incite violence, right, in the United States. So you can say hate speech, right? You can go outside and be a dick, but
yeah, hate speech laws are a thing. Like you kind of have to talk about hate speech laws. Otherwise, what's the point? You can technically say that it's hate speech, but then so what? You've labeled it a certain thing. Well done. Who cares? Like, surely half the point of making out that it's hate speech is because you want something kind of done about it, right? Otherwise, what's the point?
But the problem is that doesn't really revoke the concept that it is hate speech. So stop invoking the First Amendment. It has nothing to do with this.
Well, no, I think some people do
that by making your unserious comparison by being called highness or lord.
I mean, God, this is so bizarre. Oh, hi, MechPop. Hope you're good. You like my new webcam?
Except that it is hate speech. So stop.
Like he's kind of taking it to the next step, right? So you're calling it hate speech. Then what do you do with it after that? Do you criminalize it? If you don't criminalize it, then what's even the point? Like, you're just labeling it as something. So like what he's saying seems relevant to me. I don't know, man.
Stop invoking the First Amendment. It has nothing to do with this.
Well,
right?
no, I think some people do
that by making your unserious comparison by being called highness or lord, right? You are dodging the reality that misgendering has real world consequences.
Well, how do you know?
It causes higher suicide rates. It causes job.
That's a fucking claim and a half. Jesus Christ. Causes high suicide rates. Wow.
Discrimination. It causes medical mistreatment. That is not the case in being called a lord or highness or not being called lord or highness. So understanding that it does cause higher suicide rates to deliberately misgender people, and it does cause job discrimination.
Are you just going to filibuster the entire debate, or are you going to let other people talk?
Can I please finish my question?
All right. What I want to do is I'm going to give you.
Oh, the one I got is a Logitech C920, I think it's called. It was like half off on Amazon, and I had a gift card, so I spent literally £6 on it. Amazing.
In case you had any thoughts, Jake, you've been patiently waiting. In case you had anything you want to mention.
Yeah, I would like to understand what our interlocutors here agree is psychological distress. Can you please define for me what psychological harm is and how that's quantified?
If you know a certain action is going to potentially cause suicidal ideation or depression in an individual, that would easily be considered.
You know that it's going to, but you don't know it's going to. If you look at me, would you assume that if you call me a he, that it's going to make me suicidal? Because it's not going to make me suicidal. Yes, I'm a trans woman. Yes, I've medicalized myself. I've had surgery and stuff like that. But it's not going to make me suicidal. You don't know what pronouns someone will or won't accept off the bat. So it's a bit of a strange standard to hold, quite frankly.
Hate speech, right? Or
does it resist water or champagne mishap? Probably not, but I'm keeping it away from both of those things. Hopefully.
Psychological distress, wouldn't you agree?
Sure. Well, I just don't understand why you haven't called me my lord then, because like we said at the start of the debate, that deeply, deeply offends me if you don't call me.
Yeah, what if someone tells you that a certain thing causes you distress? How do you know they don't mean it? Like, people are delusional about all sorts of things, not just gender. You know what I mean?
Me my lord, and actually
Lord
it might make me seriously depressed. No, it's
Lord
my identity. That's my identity.
Well, I'm not. This
So I
debate
just
isn't
wanna be
about
clear, right? You're
misidentifying.
basically
No, it's my identity.
Right?
I'm telling you, it's my identity.
Yeah, how do we know Lord gender isn't a thing? Has anyone coined Lord gender? Let's find out. Well, it's gender neutral. Okay, I don't think anyone's coined Lord gender. If it hasn't been coined on Tumblr, it's not real. Why am I so hypercritical to the trans side, but give the kid gloves to people who are blatantly hateful to people like you? Are they? Are these people blatantly hateful to people like me? I haven't really heard many arguments so far, to be honest.
Identity, and First Amender, you can be as flippant as you want about this, but that is my identity. I am.
Why would I spend the time and respect trans folk? Well, the problem is, you're going on a debate. You kind of have to have some kind of basic level of civility and respect if you're going to have a conversation. If you're showing up there just to shout at people, then honestly, you're doing the trans side a disservice, because it just makes the trans side look insane and angry and kind of spiteful, you know?
Been to a psychologist where you're like getting dysphoria because people aren't calling you Lord, and you're like spending every waking moment of your life where you're literally cutting your own wrists because you're not being called Lord on a daily basis? Are you serious?
Almost no trans people are doing this, and if they are, they probably have far worse things going on than being trans, and they probably need taking away from where they are for their own safety. This isn't typical of the experience of gender dysphoria, not by a long shot. People aren't sat there slicing themselves up. They feel a certain way, sure. But this is like crazy. I mean, we can do it now if you want, but the thing is, I've barely watched any of this, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. How long are you going to be around? If you don't have very long, then we can do it now, but I'd rather kind of understand what's going on here as best I can.
Do you understand how disrespectful of what you're saying on this?
No, I have done that. That has happened.
Show me your arm.
It doesn't revoke the experience of those who do. Yeah, but misgendering is the least of their problems in that case. And I don't know whether what's the word? Whether affirming that is going to help. Oh, hey, Humi Skull, I hope you're good.
No, it was when I was younger.
Oh, okay, all right. So you never did.
Lord
By the way, those don't go away all the way into adulthood. So yeah, you're lying.
No, I'm not going to show you my arm.
We know the fact that
Okay, just give me a bit longer. Like, I'll call you on Discord soon, I promise.
Hasn't cut their arms, then it cannot be.
Right? And I'm telling you the massive difference between respecting someone's gender identity and indolging in your absurd demand.
Wait, you're creating a strong argument.
Has not
Yes, you exactly.
Hold on,
You're strongmanning indulging in your respectful, right?
No, I'm not going to show you my arm.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to say, show me your arm. Like, Jesus Christ. That's not usually how it goes, unfortunately.
That you're doing this to be disrespectful, right? And I'm telling you the massive difference between respecting someone's gender identity and indulging in your
Because you haven't shown what the difference is, really.
absurd demand.
Wait, you're creating a strong argument.
Has not.
Yes, you exactly.
Hold on,
You're
just to
strongmanning
be sure that we hear. Hold on one sec. Okay, Alex, do you have a thought?
Yeah, if a trans person has not tried to commit suicide or cut their arms, then you cannot misgender them, right?
That's not what I said.
Well,
So First Amendment, just to be clear, because we were
saying that I'm giving an example of somebody who's dealing with actual gender dysphoria, and your ridiculous comparison to Lord. That's a dumb straw man, and it doesn't have anything to do with the argument, right? So I wanted to go back to the fact that you are basically inhibiting into hate speech.
McLovin, relax, McLovin.
Jesus Christ. Okay, it started, I guess. Fucking hell, McLovin. To be clear, I don't know if I think he looks like McLovin, but sure.
Okay, so when you walk up to a trans person, and so if I was trying to ask,
Are traps gay? Yes, very.
ascertain in my ignorance the level of damage that was happening to a trans person, would I ask them to show me their arms if they told me about all the distress that they'd gone through?
Yeah, like, should you should you ascertain whether someone's likely to harm themselves first? If they're not likely to harm themselves over it, then is it a problem, really? It's an odd standard to go by.
Is that how I would quantify the psychological harm?
But I'm just pointing out the difference. I know that that's not like the
Danish Minecraft server, that would depend on whether you personally are a man or a woman. If you're a man, then yeah, that's kind of gay.
100% test that you would not all trans people are cutting their arms because of their gender dysphoria, but some are.
So then it mustn't be
and
that
I'm just
bad.
pointing out that you're
Well, some people are cutting their arms for all kinds of reasons, bro. You're a man, but you're not gay. I don't know, you sound a bit gay, I'm going to be honest. There's nothing wrong with it. You can be gay if you want. Hey, it's the 21st century. Gay people are allowed to exist now. It's cool. Yeah, self-harm. We're jumping straight to, like, insane examples. Like the most extreme example we can find. And the problem is, a lot of the time, fuck, what was I trying to say?
trans people are cutting their arms because of their gender dysphoria, but some are.
So then it mustn't be
and
that
I'm just
bad.
pointing out that you're talking about someone's mental
Nah, I can't remember.
well-being. You're talking about their self-worth. You're talking about their emotional stability. You're talking about increasing their prolonged
it's
stress.
very hard to
You're
have this back
talking
and
about
forth if you just
creating
keep
verbal
talking and
abuse,
talking.
discrimination.
Nobody cut their arms until transgenderism. I guess not. I don't know. What if you had white people cutting themselves because they were transracial? They identified as a different color. Like, what are you going to do there? What if some of them are like 1 or 2% black or something? And they're upset because they're still white, but they don't identify as white. Do we then consider it a hate crime to call them white?
Another question.
And all of these forms of mistreatment, you're causing all of these things, and you're just like, this is hate speech. I just want to be a giant piece of garbage.
Weaponizing suicide is grotesque. Yeah, I agree. A big problem we have is that we have to like jump to suicide and like self-harm and stuff like that because what trans people are doing already is quite extreme. You know, you're sterilizing yourself necessarily if you're continuing on all the way through. Unless you're just identifying, in which case if you're not getting the surgery, stuff like that, is that an argument that you're not actually that committed? Therefore, should it be hate speech? I don't see how it's any different to identity. That's what I mean. The problem with identity is it's impossible to really prove. And like, if you just see someone in the street and say, oh, hi, sir, or sorry, sir, I bumped into you. You don't know that they're trans and they accuse you of a hate crime. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
Garbage when I wake up in the morning. Like, that's literally what this is.
We need to get to something more substantive. Go ahead, Jake.
You know,
I need to get to something more substantive. Good luck with that, bro.
I did give you something substantive.
I know.
Causing emotional distress, cognitive damage, behavioral changes, and physical symptoms.
First, I know, but the impression was off. It wasn't super.
You could say that calling someone an idiot might cause them emotional distress. Does that mean that should be hate speech? Not weaponizing. You're jumping to very extreme positions, though. You're jumping to, well, these people on the extreme end, they do this, when it's like, well, kind of sounds like they probably have much deeper issues than just their gender identity. You know what I mean? And if you have to jump to the extreme to make your position, then that immediately begs the question of, well, then does it not apply to people that are not as extreme? You know what I mean?
Super substantive. Let's go to Jake.
So, you still haven't quantified harm for me, by the way. But if they did say to me that they were going through all of this harm, why should I believe it?
I wish this William guy would sit still. This is giving me fucking seasickness. The way the camera is like this all the time. Like, chill.
You're talking about the emotion. Okay, fine. I will quantify it for you, right?
No, I'm saying, why should I believe them?
Emotional
That was the question.
or mental distress caused by actions, speech, or experiences that negatively impact your well-being, their self-worth, emotional stability. You happy? Is that okay? Now we can move on instead of playing dumb. All right, cool.
Why should I believe them? Why should I believe them, 1stamender? You tell me. Why should I?
Because they might have gender dysphoria.
Okay, well, I have told you about my own emotional distress and the fact that I've been to psychologists and I've had all of these terrible things happen upstairs right here.
You have not
and you
been
don't
to a
believe me.
psychologist
So
being called
why don't you believe me?
serious?
1stamender. It's my identity.
What?
First
No
of all,
one is
you're falling into
discriminating
this trap
against
by
you.
trying to argue with this.
No.
This is not a gender identity. You're not.
So you're
talking
saying
about
that you
gender.
shouldn't just believe people
This
on
isn't-
face value when they tell you things?
Jake,
Guys, this
you
is
are
ridiculous.
not
This is actually
arguing
oppression.
about gender
That's so
identity. Have you looked at the
Hold on.
prompt?
All
This
right,
is about
one second.
gender
This is
identity.
an
This is my
analogy.
Let's hear
personal
from William.
identity, guys.
It's
This is
not
my
an
personal
analogy.
William's been
identity.
waiting
No,
for a
it's
while.
actually a really
Gentlemen,
good
I hate to do
analogy.
this. I just
What-
because
what-
William has been forgive me. Just because William has been waiting for a while, so I do want to hear from William because it has been a while. And then I promise Alex will come back to you, and then Jake, and then First Amender. So William, go ahead.
Thanks, James. Your analogy is bad, Jake. It's called a straw man because you're making up an argument that we're not making and trying to have us argue against that, but we're not making that argument, okay? You're not talking about gender when you talk about my lord. If I really wanted to avoid gendering you at all, I could do that, and I could just use gender.
So here's a huge problem here. Huge fucking problem here. We're holding gender to a completely different standard than we hold anything else. And we've given no reason as to why we should be doing so.
Neutral language, I could use they, or I could just call you by your name, and that is how I can talk to you respectfully. I don't
Well,
have
that's
to,
not a straw man.
Wait, calling someone they isn't necessarily respectful. Here's the thing. If you're a transsexual and you are male to female or female to male, you don't want to be called they. You want people to call you, if you're male to female, you want people to call you she. And you want people to get that straight away. In most cases, even if they don't say that there's a problem, you call a transsexual like that they. What ends up, their gender is not being affirmed. And they want people to see them and see them as the gender that they're going to. So calling someone they isn't necessarily respectful at all. Not everyone wants to be called a they. To some people, it's anonymizing. Like, some women out there, we saw this with all the, with all the gender neutral language and stuff. You know what I mean? Okay, okay, let me call you. Hang on. Let me call you. Okay.
Shit, let me mute.
Oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, what's
You
up?
have a different mic though.
Oh, hang on. How about now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, it always does that for some reason.
What? Yeah, I think you just set the default. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, no. So like, I don't understand your streams, or nor do I understand your arguments. I really don't.
How so?
Well, take for example, I'm just like kind of stuck on the fact that it's like, okay, you don't appear to be offended when someone deliberately misgenders you,
I'm not.
but can you at least acknowledge that other people could feel that way?
Sure, of course they can.
Okay. And if it's causing like an intense amount of distress?
Well, I mean, people's offense shouldn't be the be all and end all, in my opinion.
I mean, if something was causing an intense amount of distress, I would go out of my way to avoid that distress. Like
Yeah,
just
fair enough.
being a good person. Like,
Well, sure, but can you tell other people to do that? Can you tell other people how to speak and how to
Yeah.
interface with others?
yeah, we do that all the time. We do that with kids. We do that with adults. We tell people, hey, you're being a bad person. Don't do that.
I mean, legally, you don't much. There's not much in the way
I
of
didn't say
control
regarding
for that.
legality. Hate speech is generally protected under the First Amendment, right? I mean, there's like specific parts of the First Amendment where it doesn't apply. For example, if you're going to incite imminent or lawless action, like such as the Brandenburg versus Ohio of 1969, you've got true threats where you have an intent to commit violence. Harassment and discrimination under certain contexts, such as violating civil rights laws. These are all like instances where it becomes a legal implication. But like calling somebody, you know, she, her, when they don't want to be called that, isn't that would be hate speech, but it would be a legal form of hate speech.
But then I'm a bit confused about the point of the conversation then. If it's not illegal, you're just labeling it as something. Like, what does it matter in that case?
Well, so when you label something a negative implication, then the end result is that person hopefully doesn't want to do that in the future.
But then if they just don't agree that it's hate speech, then what do you do? Like, isn't that their right? Don't they get to decide for themselves?
Well, me personally, I just advocate that it is hate speech, and I try to remove, I try to argue against people that want to be a piece of garbage and they want to revoke basic human rights from people. And one of the ways that they do so is they use language like misgendering in order to invalidate them.
Is that what they're doing, or are they just saying what they see?
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing.
How do you know that any one person is trying to revoke someone's rights when they say something like that?
Well, take for example, there's like all sorts of laws on the books that plenty of these right-wingers actively are in favor of. There have been recent Alabama laws that have been enacted specifically targeting trans individuals, which actually it would be discriminatory on the basis of sex, which would be unconstitutional. But we're completely packed with a right-wing Supreme Court, so they're likely not going to be doing anything about that.
Doing anything? Do you have an example? Doing anything about what?
Yeah, there's a lot of laws on the books that specifically discriminate against trans people getting gender-affirming therapy, right? However, if you are cisgendered, you can receive gender-affirming therapy. So in theory, you effectively are discriminating on the basis of sex.
Right. I mean, gender-affirming therapy is a very nebulous term. Like, people apply it to mean all kinds of things. I'm more interested in the hate speech stuff, to be honest. Like, do you think it should be illegal?
No.
Okay, so it's just about labeling it a certain way, stigmatizing it.
Yes.
Right, but then you're telling people how they think, are you not?
Yeah, we do that all the time.
But should you?
Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
Well, the problem
we do that all the time.
The problem is you can do it all the time, but
like, have you ever been told as a kid, like, say please and thank you?
Yeah.
So is it okay that parents tell you to say please and thank you when you don't want to say please and thank you?
Well, I mean, you don't have to say it if you don't want to.
Okay, but like, it's polite to say it.
Well, sure, but I mean, that's like two words. That's
so it's polite to not deliberately misgender somebody and be a piece of garbage.
Well, you're calling someone a piece of garbage, like, off the bat. You don't know
like,
why
do I respect people? I don't respect people who actively want to be hateful towards other people. Yeah, I'm going to be extremely intolerant towards the intolerant. Yes.
But you don't know if that's what they want to do.
I mean, if they're deliberately going out of their way to misgender, I would know that that's what they want to do.
Right, but you're reading their mind, though.
No, I'm looking at their intentions.
And reading their mind.
No, I'm looking at their intentions, what they are doing, and based on their actions, I react to their actions that can be perceived externally.
Well, you can perceive them a certain way, but that doesn't mean that that's why they're doing something.
Okay, so what would be the reason that somebody would deliberately misgender somebody? Like, on purpose. Like let's say, for example, right? Like, obviously, like, if somebody is misgendering you and it's a mistake, that's a completely different discussion. I'm saying, like, somebody is misgendering you and then you're like, oh, actually it's she, her. And then they just like completely, they like go out of their way to call you he, him. Like, in that aspect, they're like, hey, that's kind of annoying. Like, why are you doing that? Like, what would be the reason outside of hate speech or them being hateful?
Well, quite a few. I mean, one could be they don't want their speech to be compelled. They don't believe in other people assigning pronouns. They will call you what they want to call you. You know,
but they do assign pronouns. They do it all the time.
Well, yeah, but it's not how we normally use pronouns. It's a very unnatural way of doing it.
So the entire basis of why they are being discriminatory is on the basis of the fact that they're trans.
Well, what I'm saying is some people don't want their speech compelled that way. Some people don't believe in the concept of other people telling you what pronouns to use.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Some people don't believe in, like, the concept that it's for other people to tell you what pronouns to give them. You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
Okay,
I mean, I guess like that there are people that believe in like a specific concept and they don't believe in that. But I mean, then that becomes like an aspect of education talking about the difference between gender and sex.
Well, sure, but I mean, gender is just the societal aspects of sex. Like, I don't really know.
Well,
what
there's
that has
more
to
than
do with
that. I mean, there is the sociological, you're talking about the sociological aspect, but there's also like an endocrinological aspect. There's also an aspect regarding the neurochemistry. There is also aspects that are framed in people's basic biology that can even be exhibited among other apes.
What, gender identity? I'm not sure what you're talking about, I'm honest.
I'm talking about, like, take for example, like a sex typical behavior, for example. One example is, like, there was an experiment that was done on rhesus macaques where they had two different types of toys. One of them was a truck and the other is a doll. And they basically would put baby rhesus macaques in a cage and see which toy that they would play with. Overwhelmingly, the females would play with the doll, and overwhelmingly the males would play with the truck, even though none of them, they really understand what the doll or the truck is. There's something there.
Right.
That the fact that it is overwhelming, there's like sex typical behaviors. Now, can somebody exhibit opposite sex typical behaviors? The answer is yes, that's possible. That, though it is atypical.
Well, yeah, men and women have a lot of crossover. That's just how it is. But I mean, we're kind of getting off topic. I need to look into that. I don't really, when people list that kind of stuff off, I need to look at it for myself.
Sure.
But like, I don't know. Someone else was trying to compel you to call them Lord.
Yes.
But you wouldn't accept that?
Yes. Because it's hyperbolizing an otherwise cogent point.
But we do it all the time.
They're taking something that is a gender expression to something that is not a gender expression and assuming that it's the same thing. It's not.
But please and thank you aren't gender expressions either, but you made a case for that. So why not make a case for Lord?
I'm talking about the aspect of politeness, just being a polite person, and the fact that you said that there are instances where your speech is compelled somewhat by society, and that would be an example. Compelled. Like, being a polite person is something that is typically compelled by society.
Well, not really. No one has to be polite to anyone.
Force or obliged to do something. No, you kind of are. I mean, like, if you're a kid and they're telling you to say please and thank you kind of are. Because if you don't, you're basically going to get grounded, right, for being a brat.
Well, yeah, but
you are being compelled to be polite.
And how is it not polite to call someone a lord if that's how they honestly feel?
Because they are trying to hyperbolize and be a transphobic piece of garbage.
You're reading a lot into that.
Yes. Yeah. I like, here's the thing. Like, this is like really common where people will be able to look at pattern after pattern, right? Where they don't actually talk about the entire thing, but they like say a bunch of things that hint to a very specific thing. And then when you actually bring up the specific thing, they go, whoa, I didn't talk about it. I call that, it's basically the Jordan Peterson argument, right? Like, take, for example, they say something like, makeup is actually a sexual thing, and women, wearing makeup at work is a sexual thing. And really what that comes down to, right? What that really comes down to is a single conclusion. Women shouldn't be at work, right? They shouldn't be working. They should be at home. They should be working, because like he that's just one point, but he makes multiple different points, for example, that leads to that specific conclusion. But then as soon as you bring up that specific conclusion, their answer is, whoa, I didn't say that. I didn't mean that. Right. But that's the problem, right? When it comes to when I'm looking at legislation that is being created by the United States, by multiple states in the U.S., I'm seeing very specific transphobic laws that is targeting people on the basis of their sex and their gender, and specifically revoking the ability of somebody to get care. Right. And this is just one additional tool that the transphobes will use in order to invalidate the existence of trans people.
Sorry, we're so off topic again. Like, I thought we were talking about whether, like, it's hate speech, whether we should compel people's speech. Is that not kind of what we're on at the moment?
Yeah. I'm just saying that, hey, this is a part that they use to invalidate trans people. Yes.
Well, I mean, that's not really what we're talking about, though. We're talking about whether it should be hate speech or not, and whether it even matters to call it hate speech. But you asked
for the example, so I just brought that up. I mean, we can go back and forth. But yeah, okay, so specific, talking about whether or not being trans is hate speech, in my opinion, it absolutely is. Because, I mean, while you don't necessarily have the experience that that it causes severe gender dysphoria.
It has in the past.
That is not the case for other people.
It has in the past. I felt that way before.
Okay.
But I consider it my problem. It was up to me to kind of work out what was going on with me because I rejected my own sex. Ultimately, it's not a good thing to reject your own sex, and it's not everyone else's problem. So why would I want to force people to call me a certain thing when it's not going to help me feel better anyway?
So like, let me ask you this, right? Is there something inherent about being trans in your mind? Like, are you like, could you be born that way?
I don't think so.
You know, so you think it's like entirely societal? You learn it, like you just become trans because other people tell you to?
No, I think I have met
So
some people that like their gender dysphoria doesn't seem to come from anywhere in particular, but like overwhelmingly.
So it can be inherent.
Well, I don't know if it's inherent or not. I just don't know what causes it in some people.
I love
overwhelmingly. There's some
Mary.
pretty clear like.
He needs to name the laws put in place and make sure he reads them thoroughly.
Yeah, overwhelmingly, like, you can generally find a lot of reasons as to why people transition. And, like, it's a modern thing. People weren't transitioning, like, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, in general.
That's not true.
Well, I mean, the first cases we have are, like, from Weimar Germany and stuff.
No, there's before that, for sure.
There's people that didn't conform to their
Third genders
gender.
have existed for a long time.
Non-conformity has existed for a long time. That doesn't mean they're trans. We're applying a modern thing to a world we don't understand.
I'm saying, like, we don't call it that thing, but it's basically the same thing.
Well, we don't know that. We weren't living in those times.
Okay, but I'm saying we can exhibit those historical accounts, and so now you're basically bringing up an unfalsifiable position, I guess.
Well, I mean, gender identity.
Like, I'm giving you an aspect that, hey, this is a thing that exists, and you're like, well, we don't really know. But then I could say the same to you. Why would I assume that you're correct?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you can assume what you want. Like, to me, I don't see how it's an innate thing. And what we define it as is an identity.
You seem to argue that some is inherent and some is not. Would that be fair to say?
I'm saying I don't know.
Okay, then what are you saying?
But, like, to me, we haven't pinpointed anything. So it really doesn't make sense to treat it as innate.
Well, why do we exhibit, for example, the male brain, the female brain, and then when you exhibit trans people, they're like something in between? Why do we observe that? Have you seen the violin charts on that?
I haven't seen anything that confirms that. And in fact, male brains and female brains, it's very contentious to whether that's even a thing.
Let me look that up. I got it right here.
There's really not much evidence that brains are like sexually dimorphic.
There is.
I mean, not that I've seen. I've looked at quite a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of evidence otherwise as well.
Yeah, so it's from this paper here is an example. There's a specific violin chart that you can look at. This one, I don't know if you want to put that on your screen to let other people see it, where there is effectively like differences that exhibit themselves in the brain in the brains themselves in specific someone's particular sex.
HRT?
What? This would be pre.
How on earth are they going to know who's trans pre-HRT? Just from them saying
they ask them and they say, yes, I'm trans.
All right. So why is it that no one ever gets their brain scanned?
I'm just simply saying that this is an exhibit of that, right? Whether or not they get their brain scanned is independent as to whether or not that this exists.
But if it exists, then why aren't we using it?
I mean, I don't know how invasive this is.
Well, I mean, getting a brain scan, is that invasive? They're just scanning you, right?
I don't know. I don't know the exact process if it is invasive. Like if it forces you to have to go through, say, an MRI, that would be very rough for sure. An MRI is not a fun thing to go through.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not seeing much. Like,
well, you said it doesn't exist, but it's right there.
Brain sex index. Well, you've given me a study. Yes. That doesn't mean that means it's a thing. That just means that someone's studied it and found certain things.
Found something, yeah.
I'm not very convinced by this. I mean, Like, another thing is, you tend to find gay people, their brain like slightly more resembles a female brain sometimes. But they're just gay. They're just a bit effeminate compared to other people.
Okay. I mean, like, I'm saying if they're, okay, I guess what I was trying to bring up is like, let's say, for example, that somebody is, where it is somewhat inherent that somebody can be trans, which I think, like, even you would agree with, that there's some level where it would be inherent. If it is inherent, then that means it's not necessarily up to them whether or not they're trans. It's not a choice, right? And so, like, I guess, like, you being here and saying, why is it up to society to accept me, right, for my transness, you know, when I feel like it's my problem? Like, if it is inherent, then what it means is that it's not really up to you to have to, like, be accepted. Now it's up to society to not be transphobic. So, like, a good example of this is, like, it is inherent to be black. It was society's decision to force them to be in the back of the bus. And it's like, I guess you can internalize the fact that you're being forced to go to the back of the bus and say, well, you know, why is it up to me to say I should be allowed to go to the front of the bus? Right?
I don't know. I've never.
Do you see?
I've never compared, like, segregation.
I know,
to, like,
you're
trans
not making the
stuff. I think that's
comparison.
nuts.
I'm making the comparison.
I think that's pretty nuts, honestly. Like, you can see when someone's black or white or whatever. The only way you can tell someone's trans is to listen to what they're saying, but they could be lying anyway. They could be making something up. They could be fantasizing. They could be delusional. How do you know who's delusional and who has dysphoria?
I mean, I guess so. I mean, like, I kind of just operate on, like, a firm gender identity, and unless proven otherwise, I guess.
But you can't make other people do that. And why is it fair to call them hate speeches if they don't?
Well, I can't make white people, you know, let black people up on the bus or on the front of the bus.
That's not what we're talking about. Why would you?
Okay, I know. I'm saying I'm saying it's inherent.
But we don't know that trans is inherent. With black people, it's fairly obvious because you can see what color their skin is. I just gave you brain scans that do show the inherency. This is just one of the neuroendocrinological. There are neurochemical studies on this, right? This also explains the concept of intersex nature, where this is often ignored by the right. I have black people watching that are not very happy with your comparison, just so you know.
I'm sure. Trust me. It's
you haven't shown proof that it's
the hate. The hate that I get is nothing new. I have probably about 1 million people that are against me, and I don't care. I'm going to side on the side of. I believe that people should be that their identity should be affirmed. We affirm the life, liberty, and property of individuals, and I don't believe that we should discriminate on the basis of someone's sex or gender.
But what if you don't see someone as that sex or gender? Why should you be forced to call them something else?
Well, it's just being polite. Again, you're just being like a nice person by acknowledging them, right? Just don't be hateful.
How is it hateful to call someone what you see as their sex rather than their
How is it hateful
gender?
to not force a black person?
I'm not talking about black people.
In the back of the bus.
How is it hateful to not affirm
They're allowed in the bus, are they not?
We're not talking about black people. How is it hateful to not
Okay, but I'm saying, like, that's
gender?
a social aspect that's considered hateful.
But how is it hateful
where somebody
to
deliberately misgendering somebody would be hateful?
How?
It's hateful because you're basically taking something that they cannot control and trying to discriminate against them on the basis of their gender.
But they can control it.
They could just choose to stop being trans?
Well, I mean, they can choose not to be offended
serious?
when someone calls them what they see them as.
Well, yeah, like a black person can choose to not be offended by being forced to go to the back of the bus.
We're not talking about black people.
I know we're not talking about black people. I'm making a comparison.
Why are you talking about black people?
I just like that is effectively like what you are saying choosing not to be offended by being deliberately misgendered is, to me, it's the same thing.
But it's not the same
forcing
thing.
Like I think so.
Someone's getting forced to sit in a specific place. Another person is just being called something. It's very different. Someone calls you something,
you're
you
being
just walk
forcefully misgendered, and after being told, "Hey, don't misgender me," they're just like, "No, fuck that. I'm gonna continue being a piece of garbage. And there's people that like to defend that, and I'm so sad to see that. I don't know. You're defending that as well, which is
nothing to do with that person.
Like, do you have any idea how many transphobes, like super hateful transphobes? Like, I look at their comments, right? They're like, trans people aren't real. They say they should all just off themselves, and then there they are. They are sending me your videos. Look, a trans person disagrees with you. You are literally being a tool for these transphobes in order to attack trans people.
I don't care.
That's what's happening.
I'm trying to give a different way of looking
I'm saying,
at things.
like, you have a platform, right? And there's a level of responsibility that occurs, right?
What have I done that's irresponsible?
There are people that don't necessarily have the same exact experience as you, where you're able to internalize it and you handle it in a healthy way. That's not the case for everybody else.
I can help other people do that. That's part of what I'm doing here.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Well, I can help other people get to that point. That's part of what I'm doing here.
Okay, well that sounds amazing. I don't know how. I've never heard of that being ever been accomplished, but I'm all ears.
Trans people are as able to learn as anyone else, right? Trans people are as able to learn and like develop as anyone else.
Yes, I agree. Completely agree with that.
So wouldn't it be good to think a bit differently about this whole thing when we're losing so badly? We're pushing these kind of trans rights initiatives and stuff that are not working and that everyone hates. To my mind, we need to change an awful lot of stuff, and we need to stop telling people
to be
what
fair,
to
right?
do.
Most people at the time, especially in the South, were like you're basically just giving an ad populum argument, but you're not like arguing as to like why it is right to do that.
Right to do what?
Right. I'm saying like society itself needs to change around its open transphobia, right? Like it's not okay that Twitter is basically owned by a bunch of right-wing trolls that just want to like invalidate trans people. It's not okay to see people like actively misgendering people, and then as soon as being told, hey, actually it's she, her, or hey, it's actually he, him, and then they just actively go in the opposite direction, and then they call them P3DO files, right? Like that's my issue, right? I absolutely want to push back against it, and I think society itself has to frame itself around being a decent human being.
But most people aren't transphobic in society. I've worked in society for a long time. I have a lot of experience. I've been trans for like over 10 years. Society in general isn't transphobic. You get loud people who are. But why not just have nothing to do with them? Why not just fuck those people? Who cares what they think anyway?
I mean, that's what I get all the hate comments, and trust me, I'm already there. I don't really give a fuck what these ankle biters think.
So why are you encouraging trans people to care way too much what people think and start calling it hate speech and stuff instead of just being like, well, fuck you anyway, who cares?
Oh, because I think you should call out the pieces of garbage for what they are. I think they're pieces of garbage, and I think that letting them get away with their open transphobia with no social pushback should absolutely be pushback, 100%.
Well, I mean, people push back on like rudeness and stuff, like you said. So, like, is it any different?
No, it's not any different. They're being rude. They're being awful. Yeah, push back against it. You're sitting there giving a pass on somebody who's being openly transphobic and super disrespectful, right? And you're saying, well, I don't know if it's hate speech. And, really what it does is that at the end of the day is that the transphobe will go out of their way to then misgender people.
What I said was misgendering isn't hate speech. Not being openly transphobic isn't hate speech. Those are two different things.
So deliberately misgendering is not transphobia?
Well, even calling it deliberately misgendering is like a framing. Like if someone is choosing to...
Well, I agree with you on the part where if somebody misgenders and they do it on accident, obviously that's not hate speech. Right?
No,
you
but
don't
either way,
obviously you don't need to freak out as soon as they misgender you.
But some people choose
to
use
say, hey, it's actually, she, her, he, him. And then all of a sudden they actively go against that and they're like in your face about it, then yeah, you're kind of being a dick. You're kind of being a piece of garbage. Obviously. And yeah, we should call that out societally.
But that's not what the prompt was in the question. The question was, is misgendering hate speech? You're taking it to an extreme example. But then that begs the question, like, well, if someone just says, oh,
just so you know, like on all modern day debate discussions, the questions are often open-ended questions, which result in
I'm trying
people
to deal with the
talking
question.
about it, right? Okay, I get that. I'm saying that we can then dig into the question. So is misgendering hate speech? In terms of if somebody is doing it by mistake, no. But if somebody is doing it deliberately, yes, 100%. 100%.
Okay, hang on. Let me explain what I'm trying to say. So like what you're doing is going to an extreme example where someone says their pronouns and the person just gets in their face, oh, he. That's a bit different to someone saying, well, no, I pronoun people based on my perception, not what someone tells me to do. Is that transphobic? Why?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
So
I didn't follow.
Your example you're going to when talking about how misgendering is hate speech is that someone corrects them on pronouns and they get in their face aggressively, he, for example. You get me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what if someone is just like, well, no, I'd prefer to come up with my own perception as to what I should call you, not what you tell me to.
Like what?
Well, like I pronoun people based on sex, for example.
Yeah.
Isn't that their right? That's not transphobic. That's not getting in someone's face or being aggressive.
Well, yeah, like take, for example, if I decided that, well, I prefer, calling people garbage. Is that hateful?
It's rude. I don't know if it's hateful.
You don't think that's hateful to sit there and call somebody garbage?
I don't know. I think it's rude. What do I call it? Hateful?
I mean,
you
it's
call
pretty
people
hateful.
garbage all the time.
If it's rude, it's hateful.
So you're also hateful then?
Yes, towards hateful people. Correct. Yes, I am intolerant to intolerant people. Correct.
But the problem is you read people's minds. You tell people that they're intolerant without actually
understanding look at
them.
what they externally are doing, being a hateful piece of garbage, and then I call them out for being a hateful piece of garbage.
You're assuming
and then
intent.
I get people who push back against me for being rude, when the reality is that these people are not on the same playing field. They never, ever were. They never wanted to be in good faith. They never wanted to be a good person to you or me or anybody else that doesn't agree with them, right? They literally will revoke the basic identity of these people, and then they will pass laws that specifically revoke someone's gender identity, and they will prevent people from getting the medical care that they need on the basis of their sex and gender.
What I'm trying to say
I'm saying that be hateful to these pieces of garbage. They're garbage. They're awful people.
Yeah,
they're
but what
not
happens
good
if you
people.
get it wrong? What happens if your perception is off and you've been hateful to someone that isn't actually like that and they're actually
Then I apologize.
reasonable? Well, isn't it too late by then?
No,
what if they don't
not at
accept
all.
your apology?
No, not at all. I mean,
But
they
you've
don't
already
have
been
to.
hateful to them.
They don't have to, but sure. I mean, if I'm mistaken, I will apologize. But like, if somebody's being like openly transphobic, I would probably explain to myself, "Hey, this is why I reacted that way," and then that would be it.
But the problem is, it's your perception of them. I get this all the time where people feel the need to like go off on me because they think I'm transphobic, and then they pull back. And to me, it's like, well, I consider you a hateful person now, so maybe I don't want to engage with you. You know what I mean? Why would you want to come across as a hateful person? Why not just kind of hedge your bets
because
a bit and let people...
I don't believe that the current like left-wing position of being polite has worked at all. Right? We've been like, well, let's hear them out. Let's act like that they're on the same playing field, even though they want to revoke basic human rights. Let's pretend.
I don't even think that's true.
No, we do. We have laws in the books right now that discriminate on the basis of someone's sex and gender. Right? I can show you transphobic law after transphobic law that specifically is there where it is completely accessible if you are cisgender, but it is not accessible under the basis of being trans.
What I'm saying is, you're saying about the politeness thing, I don't think that's really been the left's attitude for a long time at all. I think there's been a lot of like aggression and anger on the left for a long time, a lot of hateful shit. You know what I mean?
No, I've largely seen hateful bigots being openly platformed and allowed, and
I didn't say hateful bigots.
And seeing Donald Trump being.
I didn't say hateful bigots. What I'm trying to say is, you said that the left's position has been politeness and it's not been working. I haven't seen politeness. I've seen a heck of a lot of like aggression and anger from the left for years.
I mean, okay, maybe there's a mix. It's fair to say.
And what you're doing here isn't working. I mean, you get angry on these panels. They're just making fun of you.
Like to me, I'm trying to see if it sticks, and I am seeing that it's like there's a lot of left-wing YouTubers that are being very, polite about things. I mean, you can look at like a David Pakman or these, very reasonable people that just try to hear out the other side.
That's not even representative. I've watched over the years, like people like Vorsh, Demon Mama, people like that. They're not like respectful. They're not calm, polite people.
But they get tons of subscribers. You get tons of people who love them.
They're not good at what they do. And
maybe
most
Demon
of the
Mama.
outside
I don't
people
think
that are
Vosh is
watching
an idiot.
thinking they're
Vosh
fucking
is an
idiots.
idiot, but maybe Demon Mama. I don't like her. She had a position on, what was it? Fucking it was like self-diagnosis. And
what
like,
about the way she behaves
I'm not
in
in
like
that
debates,
favor.
though? That's what I'm trying to say. Lots of people on the left haven't been like polite, like you say, for a long time.
I don't know. I disagree with that.
But you've seen the way she behaves,
we've been openly tolerant towards people who have been hateful, and I just don't think that
I don't even know how you
continuing to
that.
allow these people and treat them as if they're human is really the way to go on this. I really think that we need to treat them
like
the way that they like to treat other people, which is to dehumanize
treat people
them.
like they're human. That's how it is. Everyone's human. You have to try and meet people at least some way.
They're endowed with their own inalienable rights. I just don't think that if you're specifically discriminating against people on the basis of something that they cannot control, right, over their ideology, you're a terrible person. And I think I should call you out for it, for sure.
That's essentializing. You're looking for excuses to judge people. You just want to be able to judge people. Tell people what they are instead of trying to understand them.
First of all, right, I just go in and I debate people on all sorts of different topics. And I mean, I have a giant hot takes list that I have where people can debate all sorts of different topics, right? And if somebody wants to have a cordial conversation, we can have that cordial conversation.
But you don't know what.
But the cordiality goes down the tubes when somebody deliberately goes out of the way to misgender people and try to be a piece of shit.
But it's up to you what someone is that makes them a piece of shit. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It's subjective. That's true.
So you're just deciding who you get to treat nicely and who you get to treat like shit for no reason, potentially. And then just apologize later. I don't think that's good enough.
I gave the reason as to why.
I think this is terrible representation for like trans people and allies, quite frankly.
I don't think so.
Going off on people and then, I'll just apologize later. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to call you a bigot. It's just that you said the thing that made me think you're a bigot. Like, I don't think that's good enough. I don't think that's good faith at all.
No, that would be good faith because I'm openly open. I am open to the idea that I could be wrong.
You're deciding
and so when I say something and then I find out that I'm wrong about it, I go, okay, I'm wrong. That would literally be the exact opposite. I'm acting in good faith, actually.
No, not really. You can correct things later, sure.
Okay, so if somebody came on to say your stream, they said, "Oh, I don't think trans people are people."
Mm-hmm.
Would you say is that hateful?
I don't know whether it's hateful or not. I think it's wrong.
What is hateful to you? Can you give me an example of something that is hateful?
Jeez, I'm not even sure.
Towards trans people?
Hateful towards trans people. Let's say you want to physically assault every trans person you see in the street. That would be pretty hateful, I would say.
Okay. So is it required that in order for it to be hateful, it has to involve physicality?
To be honest, I don't know. I think what maybe the disconnect is that I just don't care that much what's hateful. Someone says something that's patently wrong, like trans people aren't human beings. Well, that's a extremely obviously wrong stance. It doesn't matter if it's hateful. It's bullshit. You know what I mean?
Would you agree with the definition that hateful is arousing or deserving of or filled with hatred, and the hatred is intense dislike or ill will?
I would say that's kind of circular.
What I did was rattle off some definitions. That was
being hateful is embodying hatred. Well, then what's hatred?
Yeah, hatred is intense dislike or ill will.
Right. Well, I mean, that's very subjective.
Would you accept that?
Yeah, but it's a very subjective thing, and you want to make that decision
yes,
for
words
people.
Are subjective. That doesn't make it not exist. I have no idea why, like, people on the right and the left say something is subjective, and then all of a sudden, like, therefore it doesn't matter. Like, that's basically what that means to. Well, but the reality is, there's tons of things that are subjective that matter.
I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but what I mean more is, well, when it's subjective, it means that you get to pretty much decide for yourself what's hateful.
There are lots of things that are up to interpretation that are a thing.
Because when you focus this much on like what's hateful and what isn't, it sounds like what you're trying to do is like apply labels as to whether someone's a good person or a bad person. I don't really care much about that. I care about the arguments themselves.
Okay, well, I've presented the argument how it is hate speech. It's specifically with the intent to invalidate existence.
But you don't know
we've made the
intent.
delineation regarding somebody who is going out of their way to misgender somebody, and like they're mistakenly misgendering. I agree with you that mistakenly misgendering is not hate speech.
But it's not always.
But going out of your way and specifically trying to misgender something, I would love to see an instance where going out of your way deliberately could not be considered as hate speech.
If someone,
because I don't know any other reason.
Can I answer? If someone prefers to pronoun people based on sex and how they perceive sex, then how is that hateful? That's them.
Why would they do that?
Why would they do that? Because that's how they prefer to address people. Because that's what they believe in. That's what they see. Maybe they don't believe in gender identity. Do you have to believe in gender identity? Why?
Well, it's a thing no matter what. It's empirically proven.
Empirically proven how?
Yes. Gender is empirically proven. Well, I gave you the neurobiological studies.
Gender
I
identity.
gave you one. There's multiple. There's multiple of these.
That doesn't prove anything. That's evidence.
Yes, it does. It proves the existence of trans people at a chemical level. It is like an empirical point. That is how studies work.
That isn't how studies work. Studies are evidence towards one thing or another. There's studies that show that brains are extremely plastic. There's studies that show that most people's brains are like a mix. If we're to say brains are like dimorphic in one way. And the main reason that men's brains are bigger than women's is just because they're bigger craniums.
Here's, for example, another study for the neuroanatomy of the transgender identity, mega-analytics findings from the Enigma Transgender Persons Working Group, which found that transgender persons differed significantly from cisgendered persons with respect to their subcortical brain volumes and surface area, but not their cortical thickness. They contrasted 4 groups: trans males, trans women, cis male, cis women. We observed the variety of patterns that not only depended on the direction of the gender identity, as in towards male or female, but also the brain measure as well as the brain region examined. The conclusion was that they found that there is a literal physical difference in most trans people on this particular instance of the brain. So no, there is instances where it is absolutely physical.
I mean, I'd have to look through this. Like, I don't know whether it's pre, post HRT. I don't know how they're determining who has a gender identity, who doesn't. How do you know someone's not
people
just coming
who
along saying
self-identify and then they enter into the study as a trans woman or trans man, and then we observe their subcortical brain volume and find it is different. It is atypical to cisgendered people.
Right. I mean, it just seems, doesn't it seem odd to you? Every single person that decides that they're this gender identity suddenly has like the same brain as someone else. I don't see how that works.
I'm saying it would show that there is a stronger chemical destination to these things than what we are assuming, right? It's more than just social. I understand that there's an entire social aspect, and I'm not invalidating that, but I also think that there is absolutely very much a biological basis behind this. Right. The fact that sex and gender are interlinked is a really good example of the fact how it is biologically based.
If the brains are dimorphic, wouldn't that kind of invalidate gender identity? Because it's just you have a female brain or a male brain. Then what's gender identity got to do with anything?
Well, so typically it's bimodal. Right. It is dimorphic, but it is also bimodal, meaning people tend to float in one category or the other, but there's a minority of people in somewhere in between.
Well, what even defines a male or a female brain?
Are
they two distinct things in any way?
Yes. There are differences in the male and female brain. Take, for example...
Yeah, but what defines a male brain and a female brain?
This is not included in the gender... This is not included in the actual gender studies or any of these papers, but specifically regarding a male brain, it's typically larger. The concentration of neurons is typically less because of its slightly larger size. Women have the same amount of neurons. However, it is more compact. It is physically smaller. That's one instance where the brain is physically different from. There are others.
That's to do with cranium size.
Well, I'm just pointing out that the male and female brain is physically different. It can be physically different.
Okay, I mean, I'd need to have a look, but like, I mean, the thing is with these studies, they don't prove things. They show potential trends and stuff like that. Concluding this hard on a couple of studies is kind of wild, honestly.
It's not a couple of studies. There are numerous scientific studies that provide this information. It exists at an endocrinological level. It exists through the neurobiology, the neurochemistry. It exists through the psychology, the sociology, and the biology. That is 6 different fields of study that came to the exact same conclusion. Gender is not the same as sex, and that the male and female brain are different. Trans people are something in between.
Right. I'd have to look at them, like I said. I mean, I've never been convinced by the trans brain thing. They don't use it for anything if there is, because no one gets their brain scanned. It's all based on identity. The trans communities don't even want it to be based on brain size or brain dimorphism, because that would mean you could look at someone and say, oh, you're trans, you're not trans. So even if there is any truth to this, it's useless.
I acknowledge the sociological aspect, and it doesn't revoke, someone's sociological aspect. Whether or not that you want to disregard someone's sociological aspect, that's independent, right? I'm simply saying that there is a biological component to the existence of trans people, and it is observational. I did. I gave you multiple studies that provide
Brains looking different doesn't mean that there's a biological function of gender.
I'm saying that there is a biological determination to someone being trans. Have you ever heard of, there's a book. Do you read?
Do I read? I can read.
No, I'm saying, like, do you typically read books? Do you go out of your way to read books?
Depends how you define books, I guess.
A book, like pages with paper put together, that is usually more than 50 of those pages mashed together. Like, what is this? Here, there's this book that I read regarding this exact topic called Brain Gender by Melissa Hines, that I think is a really, really good book, because you're talking about somebody who they have not only a doctorate in the psychology, but they also have a doctorate in the neurobiology, and they literally explain the entire topic of the difference between the male and female brains. And
that's an appeal to authority, just so you know. Just because
I didn't give it an appeal to authority. I'm saying that there's arguments inside this book. I'm not saying,
why don't they use it for anything, then?
What?
If it's been proven like this, why is it not used for anything?
It is used. I'm saying that there are transphobes that actively just ignore it, and they just pretend it doesn't exist. And I'm pointing out the reality of it.
Lots of trans people don't believe in this either. Are they transphobes?
I wouldn't necessarily call them transphobes, but mistaken.
Oh, okay, but they don't use this for anything. You don't get your brain scanned if you're transitioning.
But they do use this. There are aspects of psychology and aspects of neurobiology that and endocrinology that are certainly taken into account. Why do you think an endocrinologist asks somebody for their gender identity? That's not for their own entertainment or being like a woke doctor indoctrinated by the system. It obviously there's a biological imperative behind it.
I don't know how that means obviously as a biological imperative. I don't know why they ask them. I'd need to ask a endocrinologist about that.
Yeah.
But my identity doesn't change what hormones I make and stuff like
that. There's many medical conditions and symptoms and treatments that vary based on someone's biological sex. If their gender is different from their sex, but let's say they pass as their particular gender, it would be important for the doctor to be aware of your sex determined at birth.
Well, yeah.
Right. There's also the fact that if you are taking hormone blockers, right, if you have a difference in your gender and sex, then there's a probability that you're taking hormone blockers. right? And so knowing that probability, the doctor would be aware by looking at your chart, oh, this person could be taking hormone blockers, and so therefore whatever. Or there could be an instance where, well, if they are transgender, then they likely have this difference in their subcortical brain volume, and there's also the fact that they have a difference in their the different endocrinological responses. So we need to take that into account when we're administering, say, a drug.
Right. I mean, I don't know. We're getting so far off. Like, this isn't really my wheelhouse, and I've never seen much use for like the idea that there's different gendered brains. Like, I've never seen it used in any application for like trans people, and we're saying that trans people have different brains to like males or females.
Well, I gave you the examples. The book Brain Gender by Melissa Hines does cover these topics, which I think is really good. I don't know if that would be helpful to you. I guess I came on here, I was mostly curious because like I really genuinely, I like did want to hear out your arguments because I wanted to see if I was like, I don't know, I guess missing anything regarding this topic. And I get your argument where it's like, hey, you know, we shouldn't treat these people, you know, badly. I guess like the part where we diverge is, I don't think that I should treat a person who actively goes out of the way and grifts and makes money off of people by discriminating against marginalized groups. Like, I think that person is a terrible person and should be called out. Both of the people that I was debating in the video that you're looking at are people that literally grift on the basis of hating trans people.
Right. I mean, I don't know how you'll have shown that at all. And it seems like you went in from the start going off on them. It kind of seems like you judged them. It seems like you're quite judgmental, is what I'd say.
Well, yeah, because like you can look at their social media presence and they're absolutely super hateful to trans people. So yeah, why would I treat them with
yeah, but why would I care about
respect?
that when you're hateful to others? When other trans people are hateful to like
cis people? That's the paradox of tolerance, right? In order to live in a tolerant society,
then you
can't tolerate intolerant people.
So then you're just all bad people then? Like, I don't know, man. How are you better?
No, I disagree. Because when you don't tolerate the intolerant, then you're left with a tolerant society.
But you're deciding who's intolerant or not, and you don't really understand who is or not.
Yes. It's up to society to confirm that.
To me, it just sounds like you want a reason to go off on people.
No,
like you've got that
because
kind of
I don't typically go off on people if you're not being a hateful piece of garbage.
Yeah, but you're the one deciding that, though.
Yes. It's subjective. Yes. That doesn't mean it doesn't matter.
But that means that you'll get it wrong. And you'll go off on all kinds of people. You'll ignore any arguments.
And I move forward.
But that's not good enough. You're coming off extremely judgmental. I wouldn't trust anyone if they started out like that and then started being a bit more reasonable and they realized that's not flying. I'm not going to trust that person now. They seem like a cunt. Why would I want to fucking deal with them?
I mean, that seems like you, but that's not necessarily the truth for everybody. And there's also the fact that maybe we don't necessarily judge somebody on the basis of like their accuracy of like how they're figuring out their traits. We do this all the time. Like, and we do it on the flip of a hat. Very, very quickly, we will judge somebody on the basis of their actions.
That's not necessarily a good thing. And what sounds like me, by the way? You said it sounds like me. What sounds like
me? Well, you
me?
said it's not necessarily a good thing, but that would imply that it could be a good thing.
What could be a good thing?
Judging somebody on the basis of their actions.
Well, I mean, it really depends on your judgment. That's the problem.
Okay. So I think if somebody is being like I think if somebody is being openly transphobic and grifting off the fact of marginalized of discriminating against marginalized group, you're a shitty person. I'm sorry, you're not a good person. I should call you out for being a shitty person.
But you haven't shown it most of the time.
You
haven't shown transphobia most of the time.
When somebody goes out of their way to deliberately misgender somebody and then they grift all day long, day in and day out, are likely grifting right now on how much they hate trans people, they're not showing it? Of course they are.
Yeah, but who's going around talking about how much they hate trans people? You're just making stuff up.
Have you been on Twitter? Are you serious? Yeah. What do you mean? That's literally all that happens. Dude, do you have any idea how many comments there are like, oh, trans women aren't women. Oh, fuck you, you piece of garbage.
Trans women aren't women isn't transphobic. Trans women aren't women.
All right. Now that's a take.
It's not transphobic to say trans
That's
women
a
aren't
take.
women. I'm not a
Is
woman.
gender different from sex?
Yes. Gender is derived from sex.
So if somebody's saying trans women are women, they're referring it on the basis of gender, right?
Yes, but women is a sex term.
It can be,
No, it is.
or it cannot be. It's when it comes to the English language, it's kind of messy, so it makes sense
Yeah, 'cause
to
we
like
make up
define our
definitions for all
terms.
sorts to make
I
ourselves
mean,
feel
if somebody
better.
is referring to women, you can say by sex, like say adult human female, or
That's
it
what
could
it
be the
means.
gender expression of woman.
So anyone that dresses like a woman is a woman.
Not necessarily. What is their internal gender? How do
Well,
they
you'll
feel
never know
internally?
because you can't show internal gender.
You
Someone could
ask
just
them.
be lying.
You just ask.
Yeah, but they could lie to you.
Yeah, I mean, you would just like analyze them and see if they're lying. Like,
What? Analyze them and see if they're lying. You won't
Yeah.
know. You won't know.
like I can't tell Josh Cedar isn't actually trans.
Well, I couldn't tell for a long time because I've seen way worse examples of non-passing
Isn't that
trans
good?
people than Josh Cedar.
Okay. Sidebar. Josh Cedar, right? He sat there with his initial grift of like, oh, I'm going to make fun of trans people. I'm going to be, dressing up all day, and
He's not making
the guy's
fun
a
of them. He's
millionaire
making
off
a
of being a
point.
transphobe.
He's making a point that people can
Yeah,
just
I get
people
it.
can just
I get it. He's
identify
being a
as a woman
transphobe.
and be treated as a woman. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
There's
he's
reasons
being
why you
a
wouldn't always
shitty
treat a trans
transphobe.
woman as
Yeah,
a woman.
yeah. It's just a person being a transphobe.
Yeah, you're essentializing.
get
You're not
it.
understanding his actual point.
I understand his point.
You're just writing people
completely
off as
get it.
transphobes instead of trying to understand what they're saying.
I understand what they're saying.
No, you don't.
They are
'cause you're just writing them
hyperbolizing
off.
an otherwise cogent argument, right? Obviously, their internal gender is not that being, huh?
He's not hyperbolizing when there's like
Yes,
far
he
worse
is.
examples of people that don't make the slightest effort to look or come across like a woman, that insist on being called women. Why would we call those people women? Because they've got an internal feeling about that? That doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't we just defer to woman being adult human female?
Well, you can, or unless if you're talking about gender, then you would refer
But
to the gender.
We're not talking about gender. We're talking about sex. Someone's sex and gender can be in conflict, but then you defer to sex.
Wait, we were talking about gender this whole time.
But you defer to sex when they're in conflict.
I say you
because
can
gender
say
comes from
sex or gender. It just you define your term.
Well, then
You
if
could say
it's-
adult
hang
human
on.
female. That's fine.
Well, then if
right? That
it's-
isn't in a reference to their sex.
But then if you can
then
look
I
at
could
it
talk
different
about the
ways,
gender.
If you can look at it either as a gender or a sex, then if you choose not to see it as a gender but a sex, then trans women aren't women. That doesn't make any sense. Trans women are women.
If you're
it's just
going
the
out of
same.
your way to deliberately grift and make money off of the suffering of a marginalized group
You're
of
not
people,
even
then
remotely
it's like
engaging.
it's just a piece of garbage. Like
No,
I'm
what I'm-
going to call it out exactly how it is. I call out
don't care
people
about that.
who like to be
Like-
what?
If you can either do it by sex or gender, then that means it's someone's choice. And if they don't see trans women as women, then it's because they see it as sex. That's not transphobia. That's
Yeah,
them.
but here's the thing, right? That's why I then ask them, hey, is gender different from sex? Right? They don't even
does that
acknowledge the
matter?
difference of gender and sex, right?
Not
They're
everyone
like,
believes
I
in it.
literally don't know what that is. It doesn't matter. They've had this concept explained to them 1,000 times. They still do it.
They
Do you
don't
know
they
why?
don't agree.
Because they know that there's groups of people that are super hateful and will follow them because they
keep going
also
off
feel
on
the
one
same
about
way
hateful
about being
people.
super
We're not even
hateful.
talking
And then
about
that makes them money. They're a bad person.
going off
Because,
on
like,
one.
do you think like the Nestle Corporation is a bad company, for
I have no
example,
fucking idea,
because they
man.
harm people, baby?
We're going off on one every time. I'm
I'm saying if you make money off of the suffering of other people, you're a bad person. Yes.
Well, probably
so like the
everyone does to
Nestle
an extent.
Corporation and the groups of like individuals that are working there and that they're causing the suffering of people and the way that they make money is the suffering of other people. We call it out. We say, hey, that's bad. You're being a bad person.
But like what I'm trying to say is, if you're saying that gender and sex are different, then one can just defer to sex. And then to say that trans women aren't women isn't transphobic. It's not hateful because you see it as a sex thing, not a gender thing. So then that's not hateful to do. That's not transphobic. You're just not seeing the gender thing. That's up to you. People don't have to think the same thing.
I mean, I guess we just have to agree to disagree because the entire purpose of why they're doing it is
But you don't know why anyone's doing it.
is to be hateful.
It's gonna vary.
That is
from person
ultimately
to
what it
person.
comes down to. I don't find it convincing that it's like,
It's gonna vary from
I
person to
don't
person.
acknowledge this. And really, at the end of the day, if you really don't acknowledge this, you could say they them. It's not that big of a deal.
But
It's
people
not
don't
a hard
want to say
thing.
they them.
So what's wrong with that?
Because-
Why can't you say they them?
Because it's just not normal for a lot of people. A lot of people say what they see and don't want to be demonized for it. And if they want to call someone they or he or she based on their sex, that's their right. How is that hate speech?
Okay, but what if it's causing a great deal of distress to the person?
Well, maybe that's the person's problem. I don't know. It depends on the
How
situation.
is that the person's problem?
Well, because they're the ones that are offended. Offense isn't a hammer to beat people with.
So this is where I bring back the fucking bus argument, where it's like,
I'm not talking about black people.
why are you offended that you're being forced to go to the back of the bus?
White people talking about race. It's cringe. I don't want to do that.
It's not. No, it's just. I think it's the same thing. I really do, because you're talking about a marginalized group of people.
When have trans people
they
been
can't
forced onto a
control it.
bus?
It exhibits itself at a neurochemical level, right? So it would be biological in its basis, and that we discriminate against them on the basis of them of them.
There's not enough proof
being that
it's biological. That there's a basis of that.
I did prove that. I've proved that multiple times. I've provided multiple studies that show the brain chemistry of trans people.
They don't show the brain chemistry
Whether
of trans
or not
people.
you're willing to acknowledge that is completely independent.
They show the brain chemistry of that cohort, not trans people.
If you read the study, it literally is talking about trans people.
Now, when I say the cohort, I mean the people that they've actually looked at. I don't mean every single trans person.
They looked at trans people.
Well, yeah, but not every single trans person.
No, you don't need to look. You look at a sample. What are you talking about? You don't need to sample everybody, the entire population, to validate a study. What are you talking about?
Well, what I'm saying is it doesn't prove anything because it's a limited sample.
Yes, it does. That's literally what studies are. They do things. They prove things exist, and then they show their work. Like, what?
Studies don't prove things, they're evidence.
What?
And there's studies that show other things. There's studies that suggest that brain chemistry is extremely malleable from person to person. Studies don't prove things. If you had a study that showed every single person on Earth and provably showed that they are this thing, then yeah, maybe that's proof.
Okay, I think we're probably getting over like semantics. Are you referring? Okay. What I am saying is that these studies are providing evidence that supports or refutes a hypothesis.
That's what I said. I said that it's evidence, not proof.
Okay, fair, yes. So I think that's what we're getting stuck on that semantic. That's fine. Okay,
it's
we
not
can agree.
Semantic. Evidence and proof are very different things.
I just was using proof in a different way, right?
The way
You're using
people talk
the
about
scientific
studies,
version of the concept of proof,
things.
not like the colloquial prove term. So it's fine. That's it's not a big deal.
The way people use studies to say that they prove things and make all kinds of crazy claims, like the detransition rate is 1% and shit like that, is extremely suspect. That's why I'm very careful not to say things like proof. I look at a study, it doesn't prove anything.
Take, for example, I provided, say, a meta-analysis where you're converging evidence from multiple studies. That would be like very high confidence in a claim. I did provide an example of a meta-analytical finding. Right. So while I guess like you don't match the absolute proof definition, it's got very high confidence that this is a thing.
I don't know. There's the thing about getting into like studies and stuff. People are going to bring studies that say this, that, and the other. There's an awful lot of studies saying a lot of different things about the brain and dimorphism.
I mean, I'm pulling up stuff from the National Library of Medicine, right? That's that is the PubMed Central. That is the source for scientific studies regarding like all sorts of different health aspects. This is the database, right? And it is the.
Nothing. Carry on.
I'm just pointing out that this isn't coming from a think tank. This isn't a just some bullshit, right? That somebody came up with from a think tank, right? This is actual empirical studies that can be proven, and it is not coming from a biased source.
Can be proven. I don't know if I trust that. The problem is there's just so many different studies that show so many different things.
The evidence can be shown.
Shit. There's evidence to the contrary. That's the problem.
Like what?
There's so much evidence.
The Sweden study? Are you going to bring up the Sweden study?
What Sweden study?
I don't know. There's a Sweden study that keeps thrown in my face, despite the fact that a majority of studies don't agree with that.
Well, maybe those studies are wrong. Who knows?
So, like, if there's let's say, for example, let's say, you could say, for example, that there's independent scientists that are studying something, right? And then one scientist says the opposite. I suppose it's possible that they could be correct. But then what needs to happen is okay, this person is saying the opposite. Let's go ahead and replicate whatever this person is saying and see if we could disprove what they say, right? And the Sweden study was largely disproven, and then we just moved off of that.
That's why I hate talking about studies, because people just bring
okay, but I'm saying a minority of studies is usually not a good sign. Right? Because normally what happens is that the scientific community moves to see whether or not they're wrong, and then find out that they're not wrong. It's very seldom that you have a single study that just completely revokes the entire paradigm.
But you're appealing to
I suppose it's possible, but it's pretty rare.
And I can't look at any of this right now to check. I don't want to sit here and read studies with someone on chat, because that's boring. That's not good. That's not good entertainment for anyone. And I don't know. You can appeal to majority by saying that Donald Trump is the best fit for the president because the most people voted for him. You wouldn't agree with that, though, would you? No,
of course not.
So it's an appeal to majority.
I get you, but I'm saying that there's arguments that has to be placed, right? And then it can be refuted, right? But the numerous amount of studies aren't really being refuted, and the ones that are being refuted are the ones that are basically revoking the existence of these trans people. There's got to be something there, right? I mean, we've been discussing and talking about the hormonal differences in someone's body, which doesn't necessarily match to their genitalia since the 1950s.
Sure. I mean, like I said, I don't know. It's hard to get in the weeds on studies that I haven't read. There's a lot of studies that seem to say a lot of different things. I don't know what to say, honestly. I'm not a scientist myself. I'll hold my hands up to that, so I don't go around saying that I've seen this study and it proves this, that, or the other. I'm very careful about that.
All right, well, I guess that's all I got for you.
Okay, fair enough. Well, listen, have a good one. I'll get back to watching this debate, I guess. Yep.
Sorry if I came off a little aggressive. I try not to be, but
don't worry. I'm used to it.
All right.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.
That lasted way longer than I expected. Anyway, Jesus Christ. What time is it? We still got time. I don't know how long it's going to take me to do the what's it called? The Jubilee thing. This is very off the cuff, you have to understand. I didn't put myself out there as a debater, so I don't know. But yeah, there we go. If anyone doesn't understand what was going on, that's this person here, 1stamender. Hey, by the way, make sure you like the stream. Check the links in my description. You can super chat via Streamlabs. You can check some music out that I've made. You can have a listen. You can buy. You can stream. You can join my Discord if the link is correct. I'm sorry if it's not. Maybe it's correct on one of my new things. I monetize on Twitch. You can subscribe there. And I don't know. I'll watch a bit more of this, I guess.
You cannot control every aspect of language around you. That's not what transgender people are trying to do.
Yeah, remember when we were talking about language, and remember we were talking about hate speech? Oh, man. Anyway.
Transgender people aren't trying to control all aspects of language. They say it would be polite if you called me this type of pronoun. You don't have to. You don't go to jail if you don't have to. But if you want to be considerate, if you want to care about these individuals, then you need to understand that.
Yeah, if you want to be considerate, I think it should be up to someone what they consider considerate, personally.
This type of language can cause distress. And if you believe the scientific research that does prove that, then you would want to be respectful. You want to have empathy for these people, and you want to call them the respectful pronouns that they ask for, or just use gender neutral language.
Sure. Okay.
Easy solution.
Once again.
Yeah, because that's the You can't force people to talk a certain way.
And first of all,
like, you're never going to convince people. You know what I mean? Thanks, Kelly. Jesus Christ. The link is expired. Oh, fucking hell. Does anyone have the link? You can put it in chat, I guess, or send it to me. The thing is, it's on streamer mode. If I disable it, listen, I'll disable it and update it. And if it starts making noises at me, then I'm going to blame whoever complained. I'm joking. I'm joking. All right. All right. I just copied that again. Bear with me. All right, hopefully it's now correct. I've updated it. You might need to refresh, I don't know, but yeah, the latest videos are going to be wrong as well, unfortunately. I've just updated it now. So yeah.
First of all, that wasn't a straw man, so you got that wrong, and that was a little bit stupid. But second of all, I can't quite understand this. Why won't you respect me, and why won't you respect my identity? I've clearly asked you to call me. Hold on, Will. I've asked you so many times. Hold on.
You,
Fogel,
Mary.
right? I've asked you many times.
We may disagree, but we can at least agree to disagree. I do think that they are transphobes, but had a good talk with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Have a good one.
Now, Will, to call me my lord. So I want you to respect me, because by your own metrics, this is my identity, and you are not respecting my identity, and it is deeply upsetting. So, Will, please, next time you address me, my lord X, my lord Y.
It sounds like you didn't come in with many arguments, Jake, because that's the only thing you're going to keep on repeating and repeating and repeating.
To be fair, this guy has... It's mean not to call people what they say they want to be called. Like, can he really make that claim of this guy? He doesn't seem to understand the argument and is just rejecting it off the bat, which isn't a very... Like, it's not very... It doesn't make for good viewing, I'll say that much. If you're just going to reject the premise off the bat. Because the problem is, if you engage in it, you'd understand why there's kind of a massive flaw with this problem, you know? Oh, it's okay. I know you did it, 1stamender. No problem. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Explain to you why that's not the same thing. I've explained to you why that's a straw man. It's not a gender identity.
I'm simply asking for human respect, human dignity. I'm asking for respect, and then later we can get to the argument. This is not an argument. This is just me asking for you to respect my humanity.
So is there any other arguments you have, Jake? Or do you actually talk about the debate?
We can exhibit...
My lord, I'm sorry you've been treated this way so far.
Jake, we can exhibit, for example... trans people existing at an endocrinological level. This is also the case at a neurochemical basis. It also exists under the neurobiological basis, right? Understanding that, show me where is your allele frequency for, say, being called Lord and your dysphoria of not being called Lord.
See, I definitely don't think that someone's pronoun preferences can be shown in their brains unless we're conflating pronouns and trans, which I personally would never do. I don't think it's a sensible way of doing it.
Biological basis, right? Understanding that, show me where is your allele frequency for, say, being called Lord and your dysphoria of not being called Lord.
It's actually irrelevant to the debate, because the debate's actually about hate speech. It's not about whether or not you can prove endocrinologically.
Wait, it's about what being hate speech?
It's about whether misgendering is hate speech.
Oh, not calling Lord, because that's not a gender.
Oh, correct. Yeah, correct.
It's my identity.
Well, hate speech is not a gender.
Identity is
Listen, it's very simple. All you have to do, and this guy should have done this before the debate. This is on Rattlesnake TV. He really fucked up here. What he should have done was gone on tumblr.com, made a profile, coined the term Lord Gender, maybe see if you can post it on a few wikis, stuff like that, and then make this argument. Because then you're bang to rights.
It's not just limited to gender. Let's just get out of the way. Hate speech is not limited to gender. I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question.
That's the debate, though.
What?
The debate is about misgendering.
Yeah,
hold on.
Hate speech.
I want to hear from Alex, because he's waited.
Yeah, Alex. I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question. What do you know for a fact, right, that Jake is going to be more suicidal if you don't call him my lord? Is that hate speech then? It's a hypothetical.
If it was absolutely true, then I would actually advocate that it is. But I think it's pretty obvious that he's just making up attempting to make an example.
I just need to tell you,
he's just creating a red herring.
When he said that he was self-harming with his wrist, for some reason he doesn't seem to have any injuries. Oh, okay.
This is very important.
Got it. So he's like a liar.
But so in a hypothetical, if you
got it.
Okay, I hate to do this. So I think that Jake had something that he wanted to say, and then I appreciate everybody's enthusiasm. But go ahead, Jake, and then what I think we'll do is go over to William. Go ahead. I have to unmute you now. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate how unbelievably offended I am by this, because I'll have you all know that I actually am a lord. I own a small bit of property in Scotland. So I am, by definition, a lord. So you guys, for some reason, I've been telling you I'm a lord this whole time, and you guys haven't been believing me. You've been saying that you don't believe me and you don't believe in my identity, but I'll have you know that it's actually true, and I can verify that. I can actually send through the documentation to James. So you've been denying my identity this entire time. I've told you about the psychological damage. By your own metrics, it is psychological damage that I'm going through by both of your metrics, and you've still been denying.
Hang on, let me see.
You, I'm a lord this by definition. Unbelievably offended I am by this, because I'll have you all know that I actually am a lord. I own a small bit of property in Scotland. So I am, by definition, a lord. So you guys, for some reason, I've been telling you I'm a lord this whole time, and you guys haven't been believing me.
What's this idiot doing here? Like, calm down.
You've been saying that you don't believe me and you don't believe in my identity.
Yeah, these debate panels, they're mostly just people screaming over each other. That's just how it is, you know. I'm kind of used to it, you know.
But I'll have you know that it's actually true, and I can verify that. I can actually send through the documentation to James. So you've been denying my identity this entire time. I've told you about the psychological damage. By your own metrics, it is psychological damage that I'm going through by both of your metrics, and you've still been denying it, even though I can show empirically that it's true. So I don't really care anymore about your endocrinological argument.
I love your example of Lord because it
Oh, right there. I think he's talking to like his stream or something.
actually disproves your entire point, right? So Lord is a legal term that has legal precedence in certain legal cases, right? There's
Like, the thing is, he's making a comparison and they're just refusing to engage because they've decided that, oh, it's a transphobe. But then why even agree to a debate with these people if you just think they're transphobes? Go on here and just make out that they're bad people. I don't see the point. I don't know why. Like, you should only be going on these debates if you're going to try and actually engage with the shit they're saying. You know what I mean?
specific legal requirements you need to become a lord. Gender's not like that. Gender's different, and I know you don't understand that, but that's okay. Because
gender's different, but like how? Because of gender identity? But gender identity is just something you call yourself.
Because that's what this whole debate's about. So gender is about a personal identity that you choose. It's your personal opinion about.
Personal identity that you choose. So it's chosen. So is trans a choice then? I don't understand. You all aren't even like, you all aren't on the same page. Who is the actual garbage person here? I don't know. I don't like to go around calling people garbage people, believe it or not.
About how you identify. It is not a legal term, right, Jake? Which is the one you were using. You were using a different scenario. That's why it was a red herring, right? That's
it is my identity, Will.
What the thing is, race and gender are different people. But First Amender's got no problem, making that comparison. So why can't he make the Lord comparison? It doesn't really make any sense. Because we just decide, oh, well, you're a bad person, so I don't have to engage with you. That's cope. That's a cop-out.
No.
It's my identity. It's my humanity.
It's a legal term. It's a legal identification, which is different than a personal subjective identity. Is it different, Jake? Or is it the exact same?
I don't care. It's my identity.
It's different.
You're not respecting my identity. It's the same thing. It's identity.
It's not the same thing. It's very different because they have different impacts. They have different impacts psychologically.
How does a gender identity have impact on you psychologically?
There's different impacts of it psychologically.
Quantify that for me. What's the different impact psychologically?
I'll give you a chance to respond, Will, but then I do want to let our friend First Amender out of the jail here. So, Will, go ahead and...
Oh, it's an actual jail. That's hilarious. There's something funny about him looking like upset and being... He's in jail a lot. Jesus Christ. Holy shit. He gets let out for the most part at the end.
Then we'll also have PFW in just a moment. Go ahead, Will.
So invalidating someone's personal identity in a cultural setting with social aspects is very different, much more psychological impacting than trying to just deny someone's legal terms socially, right? That's very different. No one is going to mind if you disregard my legal identity. It doesn't matter because my legal identity will still uphold in the court system, right? But my personal identity, which is much more cultural, much more social, if you deny that, then that can impact me socially, which can impact my personal feelings about how I live, what kind of friends I can make, who I can become friends with. It's very different because of those reasons.
Yeah, so my identity as Lord, which is actually an identity, it affects me legally, it affects me socially, it affects me in a plethora of different ways, actually. So by your standard, once again, that it can hurt your fee-fees, it hurts my fee-fees if you don't call me a Lord, and it has a wide-ranging set of effects on me. So
right, my apologies in advance. I just need a little bit of time, right? Longer than like 10 seconds if I can. If I can just please have that. Okay? I just need
like
everybody...
60 seconds.
All right, yes. So here's a paper from PubMed.
So he sent me this. There was this Enigma thing. This was mentioned on that Powered by Rainbows video.
I've linked one of your moderators to please post this also in side chat so people can see it. This is an example of the neuroanatomy of the transgender identity, a mega analytic.
Yeah, and he's contradicting his co-host who says that gender identity is a choice, which it is a choice. It's just something you call yourself. I agree with, what's his name, William. But then my thing is then, if it's just something you call yourself, why would it matter? Why would it have like legal precedent for any reason? And if we're not going to say that we want something to be hate speech for any other reason than to stigmatize something, then who fucking cares, quite frankly?
Findings from the Enigma Transgender Persons Working Group, right? Under the results, you could see transgender persons differed significantly from cisgendered persons with respect to their subcortical brain volumes and surface area, but not cortical thickness. Contracting the four groups, transgender males, transgender women, cisgender men, and cisgender women, we observe the variety of patterns not only depended on the direction of the gender identity, as in towards male or towards female, but also on the brain measure as
well. What, an activist? But Powered by Rainbow said this was unbiased. How can it be?
well as the brain region examined. There is a literal physical understanding of the existence of trans people. That is exactly what this paper is telling you. Okay. And so now that we understand that empirically it is a thing, right? It's not just your fifis. It's not being called Lord. Right?
This isn't an actual medical study. I don't know. One of my faults is definitely I'm not amazing at reading these kind of studies, but at the same time, wasn't from biased activists. Where's the activist part exactly? Sorry, just so I understand. Like the Enigma thing. I guess maybe that is. It was like formed to study like trans people.
Neuroanatomy of the transgender identity, a mega analytic findings from the Enigma Transgender Persons Working Group, right? Under the results, you could see
source of funding.
Transgender person surface cisgender male, what this paper is telling you. Okay. And so now that we understand that empirically it is a thing, right? It's not just your fifis. It's not being called Lord, right? We can move on to like the actual argument, right?
All right. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'm empirically a Lord. That's actual fact.
Give me a paper.
Let me ask you.
Give me a paper that shows you're a Lord. I don't know, man. Usually when someone says that they have a gender identity, you don't ask them for a paper to prove that. Seems a bit wrong, no? Was it this one here? No, that was a different one. Where's Enigma? There it is. Like, where does it say about funding? Acknowledgement, National Institute of Health. This is a different one. Eunice Kennedy Shriver, National Institute of Child Health. This is not the same one. Let's look at this one. Does it say funding? Oh, grants and funding. Austrian Science Fund.
I'll actually send the documentation off to James if you'd like. But
no, share it now for everybody.
I don't have it on me right now, but I can get it sent. That's for sure. And
I want it sent now, right? Otherwise, I don't believe you, right? Because you.
But we don't treat people with gender identities this way. Shouldn't they have to like show their brain chemistry is similar to a woman's, not a man's, before you'll believe them? Seeing as you're saying that it's a neurological thing or whatever.
Said that you were self-harming, but you don't have anything on your arms.
I want to give Jake a chance.
But you're a liar. You're a liar.
All right.
So is a trans person lying?
Actually triggered by this whole thing. It's hilarious. Is this good for trans people? Is this good representation?
If they don't have their DNA test.
Vogel, I don't know why you don't believe me, because this is my identity and you're meant to just believe me. If somebody identifies,
that's not how this works.
Identifies as a rubber ducky, Vogel, would you?
Yeah, exactly. People should have their brain scanned on entering a bathroom. That's how it should be.
Affirm their identity. If it said that they were going to really hurt themselves, if they wanted to be identified as a rubber ducky, would you affirm that?
I had to put him in mute. I can give him a chance to answer, but of course, remember, it might be more than one word that he uses to respond. Go ahead, 1stamender.
This is ridiculous. Like, I have to sit here and I have to argue.
Answer the
with these
question,
freaking
Fogel.
No, I'm tired of dealing with these right-wing chuds day in and day out. They sit there and argue the same stupid right-wing argument talking point, and they don't actually argue real freaking points. I bring up real, actual, empirical basis behind the point.
There's something about the mixture of him spurging out this hard and being like behind bars. This is killing me.
Can't rebut it. I bring up how Lord is not the same thing as talking about someone's gender identity. I bring up how a person's respecting someone's gender identity doesn't actually can actually cause physical harm to the person, and it is not the same when being called Lord. You asshole! You're just being a dick. That's all you are. You don't have an argument. Present your paper or shut up.
Okay, listen, Fogel. I understand.
Present your paper or shut up.
Hold on. We have to give Jake a chance.
Is that what you were saying?
Fogel, listen.
All right, let's give Jake a chance to speak.
I want to ask you if you would hold a transgender person to the same standard, Fogel, because clearly you want me to show evidence of my identity, and actually that is adding to the systemic discrimination that the Lord community faces on a daily basis. So would you ask a transgender person to show you their documentation if they didn't pass? If it was a man who looked like a man and didn't pass as a woman, but he...
Listen, I've only ever met one chud, that being Chud Logic, and he was a nice guy to me, so I don't actually appreciate the slander of chuds, quite frankly. I think we should be nice to chuds.
Claim to be a woman, would you ask them for documentation, or would you just accept it?
Present your paper or shut up.
He's not even bothering to answer like actual questions.
For if it was a man who looked like a man, would you ask a transgender person to show you their documentation if they didn't pass? If it was a man who looked like a man and didn't pass as a woman, but he claimed to be a woman, would you ask them for documentation, or would you just accept it?
Present your paper or shut up. Where do you see the empirical basis?
Okay.
Yeah, the thing is, when it's a paper person someone doesn't agree with, there's all these problems with it. When it's one they do agree with, it necessarily proves this, that, and the other. When actually, really you should hold every paper to the same standard and acknowledge the limitations of every paper you look at. Even if it's something that you broadly agree with, they still have those limitations.
Of being called Lord, exhibiting itself at a neurochemical level. Provide it. I want an actual fucking paper. It's so frustrating that I have to sit here and deal.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's nothing personal, First Amender.
Jake and First Amender, y'all gotta make it.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's nothing
He's
personal.
like still going in mute. In jail. On mute. Oh my god. Yeah, I like Chud Logic. Listen, I actually watched him for like years before I spoke to him, so that kind of helped, I guess. But like, it was nice to have a conversation with someone that actually understood where I was coming from. You know what I mean? People should watch my conversation with him. It's great. I enjoyed it.
Personal, First Amender.
Jake and First Amender, y'all gotta make it.
Mob wants more blood. We have to go back to First Amender.
First Amender will be the best man at my wedding. He's a great guy, and I think potentially a best bud of mine. It's just on this particular issue, we don't particularly agree. But we're like Seth MacFarlane. What's his name again? Jonah. We're like Jonah Hill and McLovin in Superbad, just trying to go to parties together and stuff. We're two peas in a pod.
I have no idea what this has anything to do with the actual topic at hand. So I've shown you papers regarding the neurobiological links of being transgender, right?
I'll chat to Big Greg anytime. He's so mad. Like, why get mad at this? Like, you're not really helping the stereotype that trans allies are extremely easily triggered and don't actually want to engage with any points and just want to write someone off as this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? Oh, man.
Obviously, there's nothing of the sort regarding being.
Do you think he was nicer to me because I'm trans? I'm just wondering.
Called Lord, so it is disanalogous. So we can leave that, right? But understand.
Disanalogous, but it's fine to compare trans people to black people back when there was segregation. Even though trans people have never been forced to sit any which way on the bus.
Understanding that a person doesn't choose their neurochemistry or their neurobiology. So if they feel that they are that, and that let's say that they are receiving gender dysphoria by not being gendered their proper gender, right? Then yeah, what you're doing is that you're revoking their very identity and their dignity, and so therefore it would be hate speech. You are deliberately trying to He's
just going to use the same argument again, though. Him pouting with his bottom lip poking out his pretty funny. God, this is fucking wild, man.
Gender them in order to get an ire out of them.
Listen, I don't try and bully people. I don't try and get in like screaming matches. I don't really you know, I'd rather just converse about stuff than go like this. I'm not saying that these people are wrong. I mean, this Alex guy has not had to say almost anything because he's having his job for him. And like this William guy, he can't get a word in edgeways. And he seems to have a very different view than this guy of like gender identity anyway. But I don't know, man. Trying to prove gender identity exists like psychologically or like, not psychologically, like neurochemically or whatever the fuck is an extremely tall order.
Order to frustrate them, right? That's what you're doing. And you doing exactly that, trying to want to be called Lord.
Sure, I'll even engage with this. I'll even engage with what you've just said, First Amender. So if it is about that, first of all, I don't care about the neurochemical. It actually doesn't make a difference in this regard, because just say somebody has a very strong Christian or Muslim belief if they're a very religious person, and for that reason, they don't want to call this person by their fake gender or by their
use they them pronouns. It's not that big of a deal.
Anyways,
use they them. There's nothing in the Bible.
What if they don't want to use they them pronouns? What if that's just not normal for them? What if they don't like the idea of like anonymizing someone's sex or gender that way? Isn't that their right too? Like, you're telling people what to say. People don't want to be told what to say. This kind of shit is part of like why this trans stuff has fallen so far, because people don't want to be told what to say. And I just don't give a fuck to tell people what to say. I don't care that much. Someone calls me a he, well, I'm a male person, so who gives a fuck? You know? Oh, thank you, Royal Chatton. Thank you.
Or the Quran or the Tanakh or in the Bhagavad Gita that says, hey, I like the ad hom, but again, there's nothing, just use they them. It's not that hard. Like, just don't be a dick. But I'm pretty sure in multiple of the religious texts, it literally does tell you to not be a dick. Treat you as you would like to be treated, right?
I understand. Okay, just to be sure we can hear each of you. I do want to kick it into 60-second timers here. So, Jake, you got 60.
I think that's probably a good idea, Jesus Christ. Like, he does have a habit of like monologuing a bit too much. And when someone's like going off on one about something that doesn't feel very relevant, it's quite frustrating. But hey, I don't know.
60 seconds. Go ahead.
So I know McLovin is terrified of this argument, and I can see why, and that's why he started to just.
Oh my God! There it is. There it is. There's the finger.
So I know McLovin is terrified of this argument, and I can see why, and that's why he started.
Hang on.
So I know McLovin is terrified of this argument, and I can see why, and that's.
Let me just do something. I apologize if some odd things are happening to my screen. Just quick. Okay. I'm just saving a screenshot. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. It's fine. I'm not calling it McLovin. I just did though. Well.
That's why he started to try and filibuster the debate, and he's just given me the finger, which I think is actually probably might be considered hate speech with his logic. But anyways, if somebody
like, aren't you trying to like ruin his dignity and like hurt his feelings? I don't know, man.
Does hold very strong religious beliefs, and they don't want to use bad English and say they them, which is just bad English, by the way. And they don't want to call somebody by their.
Let me guess. We've been using they them as a singular for decades or centuries. The thing is, that's a different usage to like referring to someone as they them. See, the problem is you're coming across like even worse than them. That's the problem. Like, even if you don't like these people, you can still engage with them instead of flipping them off and getting angry at them. You know what I mean?
Fake gender identity based on their feelings. And if that is the case, and if they feel a deep anguish about having to do that, and if there are billions of people on Earth who would suffer this same anguish as there are, and that's provable, then if it makes them really upset, and if it makes them feel like they are oppressed, and if they are
August, we chatted earlier,
actually existing in somewhat of a minority, then by your own standard, then you would be engaging in hate speech by trying to make them affirm, or by trying to make them affirm your gender.
Okay, you got 60 seconds as well for Samender.
No, because I've already explained that. I've explained it directly. I've made you understand how this works. I've explained the entire concept to you. For some reason, you completely just ignore it and just double down on wanting to be a dick. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say to you. It's such a shame to see. Yeah, you're enacting in hate speech. And yes, I'm enacting in hate speech right now towards right-wing chuds. I hate right-wing chuds. I hate them so much. And I wish that they would, like, I don't know, pick up a book and read instead of like watching.
It kind of sounds like you want them to agree with your studies. That's what it kind of sounds like.
Matt Walsh and Fox News all day and getting their opinions from that. Pick up a neurochemistry book, pick up a neurobiology book, pick up a psychology book, pick up a fucking gender studies book, pick up literally any fucking book, any freaking book, so that way you could stop with the stupid arguments.
Any book.
Yeah, any book. Well, I don't know. Listen, I was going to say Mein Kampf was an example, but Mein Kampf has been peer reviewed, so it's probably not a bad shout, actually.
Whatsoever would disprove what we're saying.
60 seconds.
That's not true.
Yeah, he didn't make an argument. That's the problem, though, here, James. He actually didn't make an argument. He just said, I hate right-wing chuds. Oh, I hate right-wing chuds because I can't
Yes, I do. Because they're like you, and they like to be hateful towards people.
Women
and when
don't
I bring
like
up
me,
the actual facts behind
That's all you
it, they
basically
completely
said.
ignore it, and then they just double and triple and quadruple down.
All
So
right,
I'm just going to
let's
just quickly, though. So it's okay for you to use hate speech, but it's not okay for me or for anybody else to use your perceived hate speech.
Like,
but it's okay for you to do it.
Yeah, it's called the paradox of tolerance.
Yeah,
right?
Abigail Schreier's book. That's a good one, yeah. Read any book. So I'm sure that one will do. Maybe J. Michael Bailey's book as well. Like, check that one out. I think as any book goes, that's probably a good one too. It's okay to hate speech to people you dislike, basically. Yep, true. Which opens it up then. Is it okay to misgender like TRAs that go around telling people to kill themselves and stuff like that? Is it okay to hate speech those people then? Because those people are pretty fucking intolerant. You know what I mean? Where does it end exactly?
You're probably already aware of that. I do not tolerate the intolerant. You're an intolerant bigot. You're a bad person. You wake up in the morning, you're like, I want to be a piece of garbage in the morning. You're like, man, I really just don't like trans people. They make me upsetty spaghetti, and I really that they would just rather not exist. And so I'm going to be a giant douche online so that way I can make some money and then a bunch of people.
Then 1 under 50 watch Fox News. I thought Fox News was like on the way out, was it not? Like, it's not that popular anymore. I mean, not that many people give that much of a shit about like legacy media anymore, like legacy news and stuff. Quite a lot of people get their news from like social media and like YouTube and stuff.
Like me. Like, you're literally a horrible person. You are not on the right side of history here. You're going to lose this debate.
Not on the right side of history. Meanwhile, we're pro medicalizing children to sterilize themselves.
Anyway, so if we're talking about hate speech, I'm actually the only one who's been misgendered here, and you actually were the one who denied my.
Lord is not a gender.
It is my identity.
For the final freaking time.
Listen,
It is not a gender.
Listen, I have to grant 1stamender this. What Jake did not do was coin this on Tumblr before coming to this debate, but I have put him right. So there you go.
My identity.
Can you stop double and triple and quadrupling down on the dumb argument?
1stamender, I do have to give Jake a chance to speak too.
Yeah.
I'm going to rip this dude's head off.
You could try. I don't know how
Okay,
well it'll go for you.
we can't let it go that far because you.
Wait, hang on. I thought violent rhetoric wasn't okay. We're getting violent now. And you go. I don't know. Can you tell me though? Do you think that getting this tilted and this angry in these kind of things is really a good look? Like, imagine there's people that just watch this without really knowing anything about either side. Do you think that all this spurging out is like making your side look good? Do you think you're like being a good representative of like the trans side here?
Freaking time.
Listen,
it is not a gender.
It's my identity.
Can you stop double and triple and quadrupling down on the dumb argument?
1stamender, I do have to give Jake a chance to speak too.
Yeah.
I'm going to rip this dude's head off.
You could try. I don't know how well it'll go for you.
We can't let it go that far because YouTube terms of service won't allow it.
It's not an actual physical threat. Jesus.
Go ahead, Jake.
It sounds like a.
Oh, I just muted everybody. Sorry about that. Okay, go ahead, Jake. Now.
Yeah, well,
it's fun to badly represent trans allies. Fair enough. Listen, couldn't be me.
I mean, with his paradox of intolerance, by my standard, and with that standard as well, I don't tolerate people who are intolerant of intolerant people. So I don't tolerate you, and that's why it's okay for me to use hate speech. I'm actually not going to come down.
Yeah, like, where does it end? Where do you take like this shit too far to where then someone's going to be intolerant of you because you're intolerant of another? Like, how far can we go before realizing that this is kind of all a bit ridiculous? And that maybe we should just all fucking chill out a bit. And if you're going to engage in like debate, then don't act this way. then go in with actual good faith instead of just writing people off. I don't know, man. Like, if you can't deal with like the Lord thing in this way, then like why be here?
Come to your level and use sort of physical threats and all these sorts of things.
It doesn't look very fun. I gotta say, you're saying it's fun, but your face is kind of saying otherwise.
With that standard as well, I don't tolerate people who are intolerant of intolerant people. So I don't tolerate you, and that's why it's okay for me to use hate speech. I'm actually not going to come down to your level and use sort of physical threats and all
like this sighing and stuff. Are you sure you're having fun, bro? I don't believe you.
These sorts of things. But yeah, I don't tolerate that either, and that's hate speech, and I don't appreciate it. But anyway, since
it's the most successful, but like, is it even still that big? I don't know. Like, are there viewer figures? I don't know. Like, how do I? I mean, it was still the biggest, but like, I think in general, aren't these like legacy media, like, aren't these like dropping off a little bit? Yeah, hang on, look at this. Like, Fox News dominates, MSNBC is only major network, something. Down 20% from a year earlier. That's more what I'm trying to say, is like, these things are dropping off in general. Like, people just don't watch this kind of stuff as much as they used to.
Since you're so educated and since you read so many books, First Amender, what's the scientific method?
Okay, First Amender, I'll give you a chance to respond. Let's see. William looks like he's compelled to respond as well, though.
He's just going to Google it now.
William?
Yeah, you can see the rattling. That's the keyboard going, because the fucking thing is like bouncing.
What does Google say is the definition there?
I'm not Googling nothing completely unrelated to this topic, but I do want to ask a question that is related to this topic. Jake,
what's the scientific method?
If you knew that,
what's the scientific method?
Not related to this topic.
No, that's the question that I just asked. So can you answer my question? What's the scientific method?
No. So if you knew,
so you don't know what the scientific method? Oh, you were just talking all about science before, Will.
Harmful
James,
to someone's health.
My question
if you knew
it was going to be harmful to someone's health, this is so cringe. This is so cringe. It's just a guilt trip. You're just trying to guilt trip people into talking the way that you want them to talk. I don't like this at all. Like, I'm the fucking trans one here. I don't know. Do I get a fucking opinion? I don't know, man.
If you knew some form of speech was going to be harmful to somebody.
Okay.
Just
to be sure, hold on one sec. I was under the impression, William, that you were like kind of like aroused by Jake's question on science. So I do want to, it's fair that, you know, like, does anybody want to, like, is there no one that can give a definition of science in this debate? William, if William, if you don't want to, First Amender, are you open to that? How about this? Put your hand up if either of you are up for defining science. Okay, go ahead, William.
Wait, what's the point then? Why didn't you just answer the fucking first time? Jesus.
William,
although I don't think it is relevant.
Okay,
you have a hypothesis, you create a hypothesis, you test the hypothesis, and you form a conclusion based on your tests.
Why aren't we teaching these people how to cope? Well, that's my position. You should probably learn. Most trans people don't agree with you on this one. Well, most trans people are wrong then, because this is like dog shit representation, no offense. Like, most trans people are wrong in that case. I don't care. This is why I don't bow for like appeals to majority. You know what I mean? Most Americans voted for Donald Trump. So most Americans don't agree with you on who should be the president. So, hey, I don't know what your point is there, already.
So anyway, now I would like to actually talk about the debate topic. So if you knew a certain form of speech was going to genuinely harm somebody, Jake, would that be considered harm?
This is guilt tripping.
Hate speech, in your opinion, Jake? If you knew it was going to harm them, or if you had really good reason,
like, harm them how?
To believe it was going to harm them.
No, it wouldn't be hate speech, because you actually have to have hateful intent for that person. Because in this case, if I was to misgender this person and I was just making a truth claim, it wouldn't be hate speech, because I'm just making a truth claim.
But you don't need to make that type of truth claim that you believe is going to harm them. You could make a truth claim that doesn't harm them, such as using gender-neutral pronouns, or just using their name. So why would you use a pronoun that you know is particularly likely to harm them, knowing their psychological conditions?
Because my first and foremost concern is the truth, and I'm making a gender-neutral pronouns. So I'm making a truth claim, and I'm not going to use they, them, because it's incorrect English. So I'm just going to use the gender pronouns that I.
Why not their name?
Because I'm not going to adjust my language.
It's a bit cumbersome to call someone their name every single time.
Language for somebody.
Oh, but I thought it was all about the truth.
Of their imagination.
I thought it was all about the truth for a second, Dick, and now you're changing.
You may not find many people with Mary's views because the way you act about pronouns is actually causing a chilling effect where no one feels they can be honest without you jumping down their throat. That is very true. Jesus Christ, yeah. I mean, I've experienced that over and over. That's why I started doing this. I was so fucking sick of no one listening to me about anything.
And now you just say, oh, you don't want to talk in a way that's going to make them feel comfortable. Well, that's really hateful, Jake. And it seems like you actually want to go out of your way to use language that's going to make them feel uncomfortable.
Actually,
and that
no,
does not sound like any form of love I've ever heard of.
Listen, Will, if I was going to go out of my way, then I would be going out of my way to remember Zim and Zer and all of these crazy different pronouns. And that's actually not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is just speaking the way that I would speak to everybody and treating it.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, what if someone says, if you don't call me these pronouns, that's going to hurt me? Would you do it? When trying to fucking figure out how to use these pronouns is a fucking nightmare. If they give you some unreasonable and weird fucking pronouns, like you can say, oh yeah, well that's a troll example. Is it? You can find plenty of people who insist on being called it, or who insist on being called these only, or some other weird shit. You know what I mean? The whole idea that we need to tell people how to speak is just nuts. The better way to do it is to help trans people understand that, like, people just talk a certain way and that people don't like being told how to speak. And so it makes far more sense to try and learn how to deal with that kind of shit. If it really upsets you, maybe you need to, well, yeah, but that's the problem then. What if someone says that these pronouns are all they'll use and that it's hurtful not to? The problem with these kind of arguments is that you can keep taking them to further and further extremes to where it becomes ridiculous. But even to insist that people use they, them is ridiculous because people just don't really talk that way. And most people are not open to being told how to speak. That's just how it is. Even if maybe some people find it like hurtful, you know what I mean?
Everybody the same and equally, because I'm a very respectful person and I like to treat everybody the same and with dignity and based on truth. And if I was going to be going out of my way, if somebody's asking me to use alternate pronouns, that's actually making me go out of my way.
So if someone if you accidentally misgendered somebody and they said, oh, I'm a woman, not a man, you misgendered me, are you going to not respect that, or are you going to respect that and use the pronouns that they tell you to use?
So like I've already told you, I'm going to go based on the truth. And if
but how do you know the truth,
then there is
Jake?
no hateful intent there.
But you don't know the truth, Jake.
Well, I do know the truth because you can observe what sex somebody is by just looking at them. So
excuse
that's
me?
my truth claim.
Have you never looked at
Excuse me? Nice.
person that you thought was a man or woman and made a mistake? Have you never done that in your whole life? Is that impossible?
It's possible to be direct.
Alex?
So therefore, truth claim is subjective, Alex.
Like I said, it's possible to be tricked, right?
So how are you going to know the truth then, Jake?
It's possible to be tricked. And if there was somebody who I literally could not tell if they were a man or woman, and they said to me, oh, you got my sex wrong, then I would say, okay, sure. I would trust.
You're like shaking that. What is going on this side of the screen? Are you sure you are having fun in this debate? I really do not believe you at all. I don't think this is fun for you at all.
Their judgment. But if it's...
I think you're actually quite stressed here.
6'4" guy with an Adam's apple who comes
like, are you not like bouncing like this? Is that not what I'm seeing?
Over and he's got a penis bulge and he says to me, it's ma'am. I'm not going to respect that. I'm going to say, no, it's not.
But if they look more like a woman, you would.
What? No.
Alex.
It's like I said, it's possible to be tricked, right?
So how are you going to know the truth then, Jake?
It's possible to be tricked. And if there was somebody who I literally...
Well, I mean, earlier we had the, what if you're wrong about someone's motives, then you apologize. Well, you can use the same one, right?
Could not tell if they were a man or woman.
I mean, I'd rather someone misgender me than misrepresent my entire fucking motives and stuff like that to interpret that I'm like a bad person or something. You know what I mean? I'd rather be misgendered personally.
And they said to me, oh, you got my sex wrong. Then I...
Yeah, see, he was saying it was fun for him earlier to like act this way. I just don't believe that. Like, I find it stressful as well. Like, talking to people in general for me is stressful. That's not me trying to be a victim. I still do it. But like, it is what it is, you know what I mean? But like, be honest.
I would say, okay, sure. I would trust their judgment. But if it's a 6'4" guy with an Adam's apple who comes over and he's got a penis bulge and he says to me, it's ma'am, I'm not going to respect that. I'm going to say, no, it's not.
But if they look more like a woman, you would.
What? No. If I think they're actually, I don't know what you're laughing at, Will. Like, this is actually very simple.
You just contradicted yourself.
If they look like they actually could be a woman, which is very, very unlikely.
Yeah, this is the thing. Sex-based pronouns are the only correct pronouns. People believe that. That's not transphobia. That's people saying that they pronoun people based on sex, not gender. Which, yeah, they're going to get it wrong occasionally. You're going to get it wrong with gender occasionally because people don't always want to be called they, them, and you're insisting that you just call everyone they, them, which is kind of nuts. I don't think you're a bad person. Maybe you should think I'm a bad person. I don't know. What do I have to do to make you think I'm a bad person?
Then sure. If I actually can't tell, because unlike the rest of the population, Will, you guys are the only ones who seem to be actually confused about this. But on this topic, though, why won't you respect me? Because I've already told you that calling me Lord is actually going to be respectful. But you've been unbelievably disrespectful. You haven't me called me Lord once. So why won't you give me the same respect?
How do you know?
Can I just please let me try something? I don't feel that intent is actually necessary. Okay, so let's say, for example,
Oof, spicy. Intent is not necessary, so you can be hateful without even intending to.
Let's say if your speech empirically causes harm on someone, right, and you didn't intend for it to harm them, right? Do you think?
1stamender, can you not see why people would think you're a bad person then? Like if their first showing of you was this, for example, bearing in mind this is a lot of like views, and not all of them are going to be like people that think exactly the same as this guy. Some of them are just going to be random people that stumble across it and like, okay, what's this? They're probably going to think you're a bad person.
That like something like that would still be punished, right? Like from a societal standpoint. That didn't intend for it to harm them, right? Do you think that like something like that would still be punished, right? Like from a societal standpoint.
Is it hate speech?
So like a good example is like, let's say if I'm like 15 years old, right? If I was 15 years old and I just don't understand the
Oh, thank you, Art Girl. I hope you're good.
consequences of my actions, right? I yell fire in a crowded movie theater. 3 people die due to trampling, right? Do you honestly believe that I hold no culpability to that?
Well, that is illegal. You're not allowed to do that.
Okay, no. So
is that even illegal? I read a comment. I scrolled down a bit. I don't know if shouting fire in a crowded lobby or something is actually illegal.
So I'm not. No. So here's the thing, right? I'm not. I want to sever the concept of legality and morality here, right? I'm saying, like, to you, Alex, right? Do you feel that the person holds some level of culpability there?
I think that's an irrelevant question. Whether
no, it's really not. I just need you to answer this question.
Oh, see, it's annoying when people don't answer your questions. Oh, hi, Captain Alexa. We're watching a debate. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to describe what's going on here. Fucking hell.
Hang on.
You can think it's irrelevant. I just need you to answer the question.
If you just take a deep breath, dude, I will answer the questions.
Assume his answer first.
This debate is meant to be about whether misgendering is hate speech, which these two say no, these two say yes. I'm very firmly on the side that no, it's not, myself.
It's just really hard for me to answer a question when you ask a question and then I start answering in 2 seconds like, what about this? Okay, so once again, what I've been saying is that for it to be hate speech, right, it needs to have the intent to cause harm. So for
not answering my question.
Misgendering, just be quiet just for 2 seconds. Misgendering someone could be hate speech if you intend to cause them harm. But if you don't intend to cause them harm, it is not hate speech. Could it still be from some people?
Really, the debate should be about the consequence of labeling and fighting hate speech. I think this Alex guy towards the beginning was trying to push it that way. You know what I mean?
Perspective that even though you didn't intend to cause harm, that causes harm, right? Because it's from some people's perspective, be like,
fucking William, listen. Here's my advice to you: leave your fucking camera alone. It's hurting my eyes. Jesus Christ.
You might seem culpable, yes, but that would not make it hate speech. We're talking about hate speech. We're not talking about like social consequences.
Cool. So I'm asking you again, right? If I was 15 years old, I yelled fire in a crowded movie theater, right? Kills 3 people as a result, right? I'm not talking about legality, right? I'm saying, do you think that 15-year-old ought be held morally culpable for their action?
What is this Vorsh shit? This weird example of God knows what. Like, let's bring the weirdest fucking hypothetical I can think of.
What does morally culpable mean?
Are they responsible in some way?
According to who?
I'm asking you. Please, just answer the question. Please pay attention.
It's actually pretty easy though as well. If you want to look at the fire in the movie theater one, is there a fire, 1stamender?
What? Yeah, versus suicidal ideation is certainly an instance of that fire. Yes.
No, I'm saying if they're yelling fire, is there a fire? Yes.
Oh, there's not a fire. They're just doing it. Yeah.
So they have malicious intent to actually harm.
Well, they may just think it's funny,
and they're lying about it as well.
They might just think it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're lying and they have malicious intent, then yeah, sure, they should be held.
Sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Do you see the point Jake is trying to make? How is it disanalogous?
Right. What you're doing, right, okay, is that ultimately by not respecting someone's gender, right, what you're doing is that you're discriminating against them based off of their sex orientation. No, it's not, because it's an understandable difference between sex and gender, right? We understand sex and gender are two different things.
No, you feel that way. You feel like
that's not a feeling. I literally
August, I think Amanda said he was a liberal.
Showed you the neurobiological responses and how it exists. Okay, so it's not my fifis anymore. Stop saying it's fifis. It's not fifis. Right? I can show a physical portion of the brain that physically changes. Yeah, it's not.
I think we're on the same page that it's not about fifis, but I do want to hear from Jake. So go ahead.
I'm glad we established whether or not it's about fifis. This debate has been well worth it.
Jake.
Yeah, I feel like First Amender is going to start shaking some pom-poms or something if he keeps on saying fifis so many times in a row. But yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if there's no intent there, that's what we're saying. So the fire in the movie theater analogy there was not only very boring, but it was also just not a good analogy, because if you're yelling fire in a movie theater and there's no fire, then you're lying about that and you have malicious intent. But if I am misgendering somebody, I completely reject that you think that there's a difference between sex and gender. So therefore, therefore you think that that's true. I reject that flat out. So I know what you feel, but I feel like it's just me making a truth claim. So if I feel like it's me making a truth claim, because that's what this argument is all about, is about how we feel. If I feel that way, then the intent isn't there, so it's not hate speech. It's actually very simple, First Amender.
All right, First Amender, I'll give you the same minute, and then I actually want to go back to William because he hasn't gotten to speak for a long time. First Amender, if you've got a really pithy, I'll give you like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, like what Jake
Can
just
I ask
had.
a question so we can move on from that one?
First Amender, you game?
So if
well, I have a minute, I guess. Like Jake the snake.
Yeah, there's definitely fifis involved. I'm sorry, First Amanda. There's fifis involved, and they are jangled, quite frankly.
The problem is there is a difference between gender and sex. You refuse to acknowledge, snake, right? You're not acknowledging that.
Rattlesnake.
Right? I'm showing you the difference, okay? If you can imagine manly woman and womanly man, what is that incongruence? If gender and sex are the same thing, why can you imagine that in your head?
Sure. So, First Amender, if there was a fire and the kid yelled,
wow, another
fire,
question? You're going to do another question to answer a question? Wow, amazing. Nice dodge. I do like the dodge. I really wish you would just like go and answer the question.
Whenever Fogel's losing the debate, he just filibusters and he just
shut
goes.
up, snake.
It's actually quite annoying. Rattlesnake.
Why don't you actually argue the position?
Let's hear from your pal, Jake the Snake. All right, go ahead, Jake.
Lord Snake would be good.
Gross.
So if there was a fire in the movie theater,
you're seething. You're absolutely seething, bro. I'm sorry. You said earlier that acting this way is fun for you. You're not having fun here. I refuse to believe this. And you're not like, what's the word? You're not representing your side very well. You're not representing your argument or your position very well.
And then the kid yelled fire, and then people got trampled. Would he then be culpable for that?
All right, First Amender, I'm going to let you out of jail. You ready?
I didn't hear the full hypothetical. One more time.
Yeah, so I know you're confused and you're acting like you didn't hear it, but if there was a fire and then the kid yelled fire and then people got trampled as a result of that, would he be culpable?
You're revoking that, showing you the stupid, like, oh, Lord, this, Lord. Like, it's fucking... I didn't hear the part where you said that there's an actual fire. If there is an actual...
Listen, I do actually have to move on at some point. I'll do a little more because this is fucking hilarious, but I do need to move on at some point.
Fire. Obviously, you have to tell people that there's a fire. Can you stop, like, with the personal attacks? I genuinely want to have an...
Well, I'm basing it on your actions, such as you pouting and sitting there rocking back and forth and getting upset and calling him a snake and stuff. So I'm making a judgment on you based on your actions. You were advocating for that earlier. So I can do that too, yeah?
Actual conversation, right? But when you come in and you just like do your stupid like, oh Lord, this Lord, like it's fucking idiotic, right? I'm sitting here showing you the empirical, because I'm showing the empirical study and you won't change your opinion. You won't change your argument. You can't adapt. I'm showing you the reality of the situation. And by the way, there are studies that do show that it empirically causes harm to deliberately misgender trans people. Yes. So doing that literally causes that harm. You're revoking.
I could buy that Amanda is less married to the Democratic Party and more just oppositional to either the Republicans or Trump. I could buy that for sure.
Them based off of their literal identity. It is assumed that when you walk outside and another person identifies you, your identity is taken into account.
Well, there you go. You don't look or sound or behave like you're having fun here. So I don't know, man. I think you were coping by saying you're having fun by acting this way. I don't think you are. And you're definitely not doing your side a service by acting this way. You're just kind of making them look insane.
Right? And Lord is not part of your identity. That's stupid.
What's stupid about it?
I hate this.
Tell me what's stupid about it.
Because it's not the same as gender.
Well, hopefully
It's
I'm never
not.
in a
Angrily drinks water. We got some angry water bottle action going on here. Let me just angrily drink from my bottle of water.
No, hopefully I'm never in a crowded cinema with you with a fire, First Amender. Hopefully I'm never in that situation.
Yeah, I'm just leaving
That's all I'll say.
quietly while you, I don't know.
This might be a good opportunity. William has been very patient man, tremendous
Yeah, does
patience.
anyone remember that there were 2 other people here?
William, have you got anything you want to share? I'm going to put you on unmute.
Thank you. So Jake, Rattlesnake, I wanted to ask you a question, but I don't want to give you the floor, so I'm going to just assume your answer. If we yelled fire in a crowded theater and I hate everyone in the theater and it caused them to get hurt, is that hate speech? I don't think anyone would call that hate speech. Hate speech isn't necessarily about you hating the people you're talking to or you're talking about. Hate speech has to do with the contempt you have for people that you may be talking about. Hate.
Again, we're like assuming intent. It's very dangerous to start labeling things based on like assumption of intent. This is what leads to like the complete loss of any nuance to arguments that aren't pro-trans and aren't overwhelmingly affirmational to trans people. So we just write everything off as bigotry when actually there are people that are making specific points about things like sports and like kids and certain women's spaces and stuff. So I actually think this is very bad. I don't like this idea that we should decide what people's intentions are for them and then, just apologize later. Like, be a complete dick to someone and apologize later? Well, you're potentially burning a lot of bridges that way.
Has to do with potentially spreading certain kind of feelings towards other people. Hate has to do with marginalizing certain groups, even if you don't necessarily.
No, hatred is just dislike of someone, like an intense dislike. It's got nothing to do with whether you marginalize someone or not. If I personally hate a race of people, but never do anything to actually marginalize that group of people, I just internally hate them, then that's still hatred. I still hate those people. It's got nothing to do with marginalization at all.
Necessarily hate them, and that's why I brought up that scenario of if I have a driving urge to convert every single person of every single religion, and I will not acknowledge their existence unless they convert to my religion, and I love them because I want to do that for them. That is really easy to call that hate speech because you are completely denying these people's their validity. You are not acknowledging what they truly believe. You won't let them believe what they want to believe. That is very easily definable as hate speech. Your definition is not the commonly used one. I would not go with.
A lot in here, Will. Are we talking?
This is my one chance, dude. This is my one chance. I got like 2 seconds to talk this whole debate. So give me one moment here. Your definition's messed up, Jake.
Okay, you said a lot there. But yeah, we can take it one by one if you want. Or I mean, let me ask you this, Will. Just say, if studies show that it hurts people's feelings to call them fat,
I have a good one, Ham Popper.
But it made society vastly more healthy at the expense of a few fat people, and it reduced all of this.
What it feels like is we're teaching people to judge people and not care if it's erroneous. And I'm not down with any of that. I think we should teach people to be more like judgmental and aggressive towards people.
Would you do it?
That's a very different situation. It really depends on how much harm it's going to give them.
I mean, like,
right?
no, if you're talking about harassment of fat people, then no, I don't like that either.
First Amendment. Come on.
Talking to Will.
Okay, so it really depends, right? Have you ever heard of those who walk away from Amalas? It presents a situation of if it harms one person but it helps everybody else, is it going to be worth it? Well, it might depend, right? How much are you harming these people? Are you harming them to the point of unaliving themselves?
Okay,
maybe it's not worth it, right? It depends. It's not that simple.
Just to let you know again, the study.
So like, how would you know either way then? So why would you base it on like the most extreme example? When the extreme examples might have all sorts of other things going on, you know what I mean? They've got nothing to do with trans. That they might be confusing for trans, because people do that.
Studies show that if you call a few of these people fat, it makes society vastly more healthy. So if you're looking at it from the utility points in the direction that calling these people fat reduces harm greatly.
You haven't described how much harm it's done to the people. You haven't described it. If it causes them
towards... no study that shows that.
No one ever fucking describes how much harm anything does to anyone. You'd be lucky if you get more than just the word harm and be expected to like go along with it.
No, but the hypothetical, you haven't described how much harm it's done to those individuals.
This part is boring. I'm going to skip through a couple more times because I do need to move on.
They were doing.
That's not what I said. I didn't say that at all.
It's likely to perpetrate what they're doing, which is harmful to society.
I don't think that's true.
But that's what you just said, though. You said that you
No,
should.
that's not what I just said.
You said that you should be.
Listen to what I say.
Because You said that you should be able to call them that because if you call them that, then they won't do what they were doing.
That's not what I said. I didn't say that at all.
Okay, so you think that you shouldn't be able to call them a pedo then, if it hurts them?
What? I mean, if you're talking about somebody who just like got out of prison or whatever, right, and is trying to like get their life, going out of your way to call them like a pedo in order to like get them to lose their
Fuck is going on here?
job is horrendous. Yeah, that's a terrible action. Like I believe that, I mean, unless if, I don't know, is there kids involved though? Like, are they working at a daycare? Then yeah, I would not consider that to be harmful.
I was drinking something. Okay.
Right? I'm mitigating the harm here is kind of my point.
Mitigating the harm to the pedos. Okay.
To people in general,
jump to the next
overall, society.
This is the way the culture's going.
This one from Retro Royster Gaming says, why are these soy boys getting so worked up defending men wearing dresses?
Yeah, because I'm not talking about men wearing dresses. I'm talking about people's very identity and revoking that identity. It is assumed that when you walk outside,
Which you can't see or tell in any way, shape, or form.
that your identity is respected, and so I would like to be treated how others would treat me. So it's the same situation. Like I just treat them with respect.
You keep on using this word revoking First Amendment, and that's absurd.
Yeah, you're revoking human rights by denying people their identity.
If you believe that is your
Revoking human rights by denying identity. That's ridiculous, man. I don't even think you actually believe that. That's a ridiculous fucking thing to say. Revoking someone's rights by not affirming their identity. Whatever the fuck it was.
First Amendment, and that's absurd.
Yeah, you're revoking human rights by denying people their identity.
Denying people their identity. No one has to agree with you on your identity. No one has to see yourself the way that you see yourself. That doesn't make any sense. Say that you're revoking someone's human rights. It just feels like a lot of the time what we're trying to do is label something as a really bad thing so we can stigmatize it. But those aren't good arguments. That's not a good way to argue. That's just trying to stigmatize people, which I think is bullshit. Okay, well, that's a pretty cracked out belief, quite frankly. I'm a mule deer. Do you affirm my mule deer identity? You should. I have long legs. I have big ears. You can't see them, but I do. I grow antlers, just not right now because it's February.
If you believe that is your identity, like I believe that I'm a lord, if somebody doesn't call me a lord, I'm still going to be a lord, right?
I've already showed you empirically how that's not the case and how they are disanalogous. Stop doubling down on the dumb
Why do you make an
argument
argument
and that you provide no rebuttal.
Grumpy about
I gave you the argument. You just refuse to acknowledge it.
Jake, the broken record. Jake, the jukebox.
We'll jump in.
Jake,
that wasn't very good, Will. That wasn't very good.
What an appropriate
Come up with new material, Jake.
snake.
I tried.
A
You guys need to come up with an argument. Come up with an argument, and then I'll
crawling down his fucking
Well, a
belly.
snake is someone that betrays someone. I don't really see any
sneaky little
betrayal.
snake.
This one from Made by Jim Bob says, First Amender. Is it hate speech if the neurologist tells someone they have a trans brain if they don't experience having a trans brain?
Listen, if deer gender has been coined on Tumblr, then First Amender needs to accept that I'm a deer. Wait, it's on LGBTQIA wiki. So this is real. So this is valid. It's on LGBTQIA plus wiki. Dear gender, look, you see? I have a xenogender. This is how I identify. I mean, my antlers have never actually grown. I'm just figuring that because I'm a human, it takes a lot longer. And maybe 34 in human years is still like, you know, juvenile in deer years. You know what I mean? This is valid. This is a real gender, and it's my gender. So you have to accept my identity now. That's how it works.
That's fair. It is not transphobic because now we can then exhibit the difference between an.
You're not accepting my identity. That's not very nice.
Internal gender characteristics to what can be observed externally. Obviously, there's a multitude of factors, not just like this specific portion in a person's brain, right? Gender is complex, and there's a lot of different factors that go into it, right? It could be an endocrinological response. It can.
I am extremely skittish. Listen, this is valid. I don't care. Like, why does my shit suddenly not matter when there's an actual? Listen, I looked up Lord gender. I agreed with you, First Amender. I agreed with you that Lord gender is not valid because it's not been coined anywhere. But this is real. LGBTQIA plus wiki says so. Oh my god, literally Hitler gender. Listen. All we have to do is start coining this kind of shit on Twitter, not on Twitter, on Tumblr. That's all you have to do.
Can happen as early as, even before birth, these endocrinological responses.
Yeah, if I get a brain scan, I'm good to go.
There can be societal factors.
Do you know how much dysphoria I get? Do you know how much species-based dysphoria I get because I don't actually grow any antlers? I didn't even expect there to be anything there, honestly. I'm kind of amazed. Listen, my gender does repeatedly fall off or collapses. That's why I keep rejecting my own gender identity as a trans person. Also, just because it's a sociological idea, that means it's not valid. I thought gender was sociological. I'm very skittish. I'm stronger than I look, for sure. I'm quite skinny. I'm stronger than I look, for sure. And I'm definitely quite fast. I used to do like running and shit like that. Anyway.
That are involved, it's complex. Gender is complex.
So your brain study, it doesn't matter then? First Amendment, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Because it's complex, then therefore, brain study no matter. What a dumb thing to say.
I love it how every time you get absolutely destroyed, First Amendment, you just...
Oh my God. Oh, this is like... I can't remember the last time I've seen someone spurg this hard in a debate. This is amazing.
You just get grumpy and you just say, "Oh,
yeah, because it's idiotic. It's a dumb thing to say."
Refuted and then
yes,
you say,
it's dumb. It's dumb. It's a very dumb thing. Yes.
Wow,
yes.
high tier stuff.
Yep, it's very high tier. Yeah, about as high tier as you.
Wow, from Cole Marshall.
Then you agree that my gender is valid, and you should apologize to me for revoking my human rights by denying my identity.
This one from Retro Reister Gaming says, made by Jim Bob, can, quote, a cis woman identify as a trans woman? Get Christo to call in.
This is a fundamental misunderstanding of what cis women...
No. Listen, it's really simple. I can answer this question by quoting the great Matt Dillahunty. Trans people aren't cis.
It literally means that you have the same gender as your sex. So if you're a trans woman, then you would not be cis anymore. So yeah.
And I don't identify as cis, actually. So First Amendment is a hate speech if you call me a cis male and I don't identify
as... It just means your gender aligns with your sex. You are cis.
I reject that. So is that hate speech? Because that's not my identity.
It's just the terminology that is used regarding specific
I respect
neurobiological responses.
What's your gender, Jake? What's your gender?
My sex is I'm a male.
That's not what I asked you.
Yeah,
look, you don't understand what gender is. What a shocker.
Yeah, he doesn't understand it. Yeah.
I'm a male and I'm a man.
So big man.
There you go, Will. I'm a man.
I'm not being hyperbolic. You're withdrawing my human rights to identify as what I want to. Quite frankly, I think that's what you're doing. Shut your fucking mouth. I need to watch more fucking Matt Dillahunty. That guy is off the chain.
So you know the difference.
Well, but they can imagine the difference between manly woman and womanly man. They can immediately know what that is. But if they didn't understand the difference between sex and gender, then it would be equivalent to me saying hot cold. But you can imagine womanly man and you can imagine manly woman. So what is that incongruence? Well, what do you call that incongruence?
A womanly man is observable, and I know a womanly man when I see one.
Yeah, so
still a man,
something doesn't align with their typical sex, right?
I know.
What is that something?
I don't know, you tell me, First Amendment, is it a micropenis?
It's called gender. Well, I'm sorry.
How many fingers do
snake, you gross...
Don't be so angry at your partner.
First Amendment, how many fingers do humans have?
I hate them.
I know you do.
That's actually it's hilarious.
Yes, this is
I love this guy.
How many fingers do humans have?
I'm willing to admit
this is the best thing I've ever watched in my life.
When I'm being hateful.
How many fingers do humans have?
McLovin is mad. He's getting wrecked by an Aussie. I can relate. I would be too, especially if all I had was Maharm, hope, and seethe. Also, if Lord isn't a gender...
Matt Dillahunty is a homosexual. True.
How many are there? What makes it one?
I didn't get the last part, the final part.
What makes a gender?
If Lord isn't a gender, how many are there? And what makes it one? What makes something a gender?
I would love to take that. If my intro did really specific,
you'll probably have a better answer than me.
I really tried to break it down in my intro. There's two different categories. There's gender identity and there's gender expression, right? Gender identity is an internal, subjective viewpoint of yourself. It cannot be wrong because it is your own opinion about your own identity. There's no wrongness in that. Gender expression is dictated by your society. There's masculine, there's feminine.
The United States has gone, we're going to...
Oh, someone's calling you daddy. First Amendment. How much do you like that?
Listen, I'm not really following it anymore. I'm just skipping through because this is just too funny.
I don't know. I just listen.
Your studies.
My spirit is like broken now. I feel bad almost. I feel bad. Like these people are just like kicking a man while he's down at this point. Listen, I wish the jail bars were still there. That would just complete the picture for me. I'm sorry, listen, I'm mocking you a lot, but like, I don't know. You choose to come into these kind of debates. You choose to represent my people, even though you won't accept my identity. I don't know, man.
Marcus Antonio says, first offender, shave your arms, bro. Daddy Mender, chill. Oh, someone's calling you daddy. First offender, how much do you like that?
I don't know. I just listen. I mean, I get like it's all fun and games, but it's like it really does genuinely.
Empirically reviewed paper. Wasn't Mein Kampf peer reviewed? I heard about that.
It's very, very upsetting knowing that there's like this many people that just want to revoke human rights, and just seeing like all of the hate online. I don't know. It's honestly, it's really upsetting to see, because it's like, I don't know where the United States has gone. I mean, we're going to look at this 30 years into the future.
Well, yeah, but this is like way into the video. As long as it's not in the first 10 minutes, it's fine, probably. Hi, I love you.
And realize like all of this nonsense was wrong. Right?
What's a human right, First Amendment?
But I would appeal to the negative rights of inalienable rights of life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, and what makes trans rights a human right?
Yeah, but it still got peer reviewed. Mein Kampf got peer reviewed. Have you not heard about that? It's true. It actually happened.
Trans rights are a human right because you're talking about their identity, their very dignity, their ability to get the health care that they need, and literally discriminate them on the basis of their sex and their gender.
We're tying a lot of things into this.
And where do they get these human rights from?
I believe it comes from human reason, but
Listen, first Amanda, Amaya hates gay old people, but she's also with WPATH, so I don't know. You might want to take her a little bit seriously. Who knows?
others will tell you it comes from God.
So you believe that it comes from purely your perception, basically?
Not my perception. I said human reason, not my reason.
Right. So it becomes to your perception because you have no actual way to ground that. If you don't believe it comes from God, if you believe
Olivia was here earlier. I haven't seen John. What's his name? Well, I can't remember. I'm surprised he hasn't shown up, to be honest. Olivia was here earlier, but I was kind of busy, so I wasn't in the mood to deal with her, quite frankly.
This is a completely different discussion, and we're in Q&A. Like, holy crap. I mean, if you want to have that discussion, we can have a debate regarding that. But yeah.
Rights are a legal term dictated by the...
Wait, why are you offering another debate when you think this is just a bad person? Is Amaya single? Amaya's not single. Amaya dates that person that was like calling me a bootlicker over and over in my comments. That's why I bring it up every time she appears in my chat, because I don't know. I'm not a mug. I don't know why I should just let things slide like that all the time.
The government.
Okay, so we shouldn't have trans rights for people in Ethiopia then?
They should have the government give them rights.
Hey, I did not say that you didn't hate yourself. I did not say that might not be the case at all. Don't worry.
But their government says they shouldn't, so...
Yeah, they don't have rights, but they should have rights.
Okay, but their government says they shouldn't. So if it comes from the government, then the government's correct, right?
I didn't say the government's correct.
So then it comes from your perception. Well, come on now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So then why don't you say that from the start? It comes from my perception. It comes from
also a legal term. It's also legal. You're missing the
new
nuance yet again, Jake. Shocker. Oh my God.
Please.
Women don't get the right to not have men in their areas. That's just how it is. Men have all decided it, so it must be true.
I can't wait. Tell me the argument.
You missed it. There's different contexts of how rights can be affirmed. There can be legal rights. There can be personal
giant
rights.
Debate that could literally go down a giant rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's.
I'm not hating on the grind. It just makes you sound like a bit of a grifter. That's all.
Not as simple as you think the world is, Jake. There's complicated things in the world.
Seems like you're the one who hasn't been
you.
able to grasp complicated topics tonight, Will, unfortunately. I wish it would have been a bit more challenging.
How do you not see how
Fogel
your
learned
role
literature.
in this, how you contribute to this dynamic? How by becoming
No, I'm here to fight back. I'm here to fight back.
But you're only causing more people to disagree with you.
I don't
This is true. He's right about this.
care. I don't care. I will literally...
You don't care about them.
Like, I said kind of a similar thing. Like, even when a trans person says that kind of thing. Oh, thank you for the gifted subs. No Kool-Aid for kids. Thank you.
I'm so tired of being the polite Democrat that's just going to be there and be like, oh, well, let's hear the other side. Literally, dude, the argument is there's two arguments. One wants to argue in basis of human rights, and the other one wants to put brown and trans people in a blender. Like, no, we're not on the same level.
Listen, I don't know about anyone else. What I found by like opening myself up to other people that don't believe the same things I do politically is that they're actually just people, and they're not all fucking racist, crazy fucking freaks. And then on the other side, you get people on the left who kind of seem a bit fucking racist or crazy or whatever the fuck. I don't know, man. I think if you actually talk to more people, not in these kind of fucking settings where it's combative as fuck, you might find that you have more in common with like right-wingers than you think. I don't know, man.
We're not. We never were. Like, we argue basic human rights.
These people that want to put people in a blender. Like, you're just strawmanning the other side completely.
What? Yeah, obviously it's not literally a blender. It's called hyperbole. Yeah, it's called hyperbole. But what is true?
Wait, but you called me hyperbolic for talking about dear gender, and that's my actual identity. But now it's bad? I don't understand. Now it's fine, should I say? I don't get it. The standards are a bit wonky, in my opinion.
True, right? What is empirically verified is the fact that they are denying medical care on basis of being trans. By the way, completely unconstitutional because that is their sex.
Well, the side I'm on includes allowing people who don't think in lockstep with the trans lobby to say their piece without getting harassed and hated on, like J.K. Rowling, for example. The side that I'm on isn't about medicalizing children, deciding that at the age of 13, they can decide how the rest of their life's going to go, and they just don't know. And they might fuck up their chances of like having kids and stuff like that. The side that I'm on respects my identity as a deer. The side that I'm on isn't about fucking up women's sports when men are just, by all measures, better at most sports than women. I don't know, man. I don't know why we're on the same side by your standard. And listen, I'm a liberal myself. I'm not like right-leaning myself. I've just chosen to stop shutting people out based on that kind of thing because I don't think it's right. I've chosen to stop shouting people out because they prefer sex-based pronouns and would rather call me a he than a she. I just don't care about that anymore. I think there's bigger things to care about, personally.
Right? We are literally pushing them out of spaces. They can't be in.
Wait, why is race not equivocal to gender now? It was earlier. Doesn't make sense.
Basic public spaces without getting harassed day in and day out.
Oh, is it because you were talking to me and I'm white and the other person is black? I suppose when it's black people, you can lie about things. You only have to be honest to other white people. I get it. Don't worry. Listen, I'm not racist myself, but I'm also not judging. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really care too much if someone's like bigoted personally. So hey.
And it's horrendous. Y'all, everybody who's anti-trans, it's fucking horrendous. You guys are gross. You guys get up in the morning, you're like, man, I want to be a hateful piece of shit in the morning. And then you go do that.
You don't see how you're like making out people to be like cartoon characters though. This ain't it. People aren't cartoon characters. People don't sit there wringing their hands, stroking their kittens and twirling their mustaches, thinking how they can fuck with trans people today. You know what I mean?
It's disgusting. I hate it. And I hate pretending that we're on the same level. We're not.
This is just your.
I have a theory that I think that First Amender is just trying to get some pussy, honestly, and that this is why he gets so irate about all of this.
What the fuck are you talking about?
That's just my theory.
That has nothing to do with anything.
I think that's what it comes down to.
I never said anything saying, "Oh, if there's any girls that like me, maybe you."
Nah, it's not pussy. He's trying to get fucking out. Unless he wants a male-looking person with a pussy, maybe. I think it's more about the gawk. Listen, First Amender, you need to meet my man Chud Logic. He knows all about the need for gawk. He's all down with that shit, trust me. He was very disappointed to hear that I no longer had one.
I never said anything like that. But what I did say is that you're invoking basic human rights.
Even William is like getting involved. Stop getting triggered.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate pretending that you're on the same fucking level. You're not.
Someone will touch your PP one day, First Amender. Don't worry. Someone will touch your PP.
You were falling into the trap every time, First Amender. You gotta hold yourself.
I would rather have smart people
falling into the trap every time, First Amender. You gotta.
Even fucking William is fucking. You're falling into the trap every time. I really need to move on, but this is too good, man. This is too fucking good. It's about to finish anyway.
Hold yourself.
I would rather have smart people running.
Oh, listen. There are some gawk havers with extremely low standards, trust me.
the government than like somebody who does not read and literally speaks at a 4th grade level, and a bunch of right-wing chuds sit around and say, see that guy, he talked kind of like me. Yeah, no, I'd rather have smart people actually run things.
Yeah, I'll actually grant that, First Amender, and I'll just say that, I don't read so good, and
I can't control my dear gender. It's neurological.
I've never learned to read, and I wouldn't be able to if I tried, and I do speak like a 4-year-old. But unfortunately for you, First Amender, you just got absolutely demolished by that guy for 2.5 hours. So I think it says more about you, buddy.
Okay, Snake.
Oh, good one.
This one.
Sick burn. There we go. Ooh, what is this? Please stop playing. Please stop playing. Listen, that's for another time. Respect my identity, please. This is real. It says so on LGBTQI plus wiki. I need to move on very swiftly. Hey, make sure you like the stream. Make sure you check the links in my description. You can super chat via Streamlabs. You can check out some music that I have made on Bandcamp and Spotify, and or you can buy, you can stream. You can also check out my Discord. The link should be correct now. If it still starts with a B or something, if it doesn't start with an N, should I say, then maybe refresh and you will find it. Show me a study. Show me a study that dear gender isn't valid. I don't need to show a study because I know who I am on the inside. Like when it comes to summer, I start walking around like this. And listen, it's gauche to laugh at your own jokes, but I don't care. Oh my god. Oh my god. Anyway, I need to move on.